All right, welcome everybody to our regular scheduled city council meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 19, 2023. It's 6 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. And as always, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. That's this.
That's crazy. All right. Barb, let's start with you reading the open meeting statement for us.
All right. This meeting and all meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And can you also take roll for us?
Mayor Brian Smith,
Here.
Colin Dykstra,
Here.
Lori Chestnut,
Here.
Paul Hagan, Henry Veliker,
Here.
Scott Perchatsky,
Here.
Dave Peterson,
Here.
Paul Mayo,
Here.
Dimitri Martin,
Here.
Corey Nagel,
Here.
Eric Olson.
Here.
9 present. We have a quorum.
Okay, and then also, as always, we like to introduce our staff, and we'll start with you, Barb.
Barb Nowak, City Clerk.
Aaron Jensen, City Administrator.
Eric Bailey, Library Director.
Jared Rakeu, Community and Economic Development.
Stephanie Reif, Finance Director.
Justin Behrens, Director of Public Works.
Laura Colbert, Parks and Rec Director.
Paul Benjwell, Captain, Police Department.
And since Josh doesn't show up, I'm not going to introduce him anymore. So. Actually, he's in the back room, working the cameras and the microphones. So thank you for all of that. Let's go to the consent agenda. There are no additions to the consent agenda. These are items where we take one motion on all of these items with a second, and we vote on those unless somebody would like to see one of those items moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda, where we would handle that item individually. If we do not have that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Martin, second by Olson, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against, say no. Motion carried. Next up, we have the regular agenda, and again, there are no additions or deletions, as far as I know, to the agenda. So again, we'd be just looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Chestnut, second by Martin, that we approve the regular agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against, say no. Motion carried. On page 87, non-agenda items and announcements, on page 87 of your packet, there is a proclamation, the National Rail Safety Week. I guess I'll go ahead and read that. They've asked us to do that, so we'll go ahead and read that so we can place it on file. This is a National Rail Safety Week, whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across the U.S. from September 18th to the 24th, 2023, whereas 2,194 rail grade crossing collisions resulted in 803 personal injuries and were responsible for 274 fatalities in the United States during 2022, and whereas 1,208 pedestrians trespassing casualties have occurred in the United States, resulting in 658 pedestrians being killed and another 550 injured while trespassing on railroad property rights of way during 2022. Whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that the railroad right-of-ways are private property enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws. Will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas the International Association of Chiefs of Police, National Operation Lifesaver, United States Department of Transportation, and all local, state, county, and railroad law enforcement officers, first responders, and railroad corporations commit to partnering together in an effort to educate at a national level all aspects of railroad safety to enforce applicable laws in the support of National Rail Safety Week. Therefore, I, Mayor Brian Smith, do hereby attest my full support proclaiming September 18th, 2024, 2023 National Rail Safety Week, and I encourage all citizens to recognize the importance of rail safety education. So again, they asked us to read that and make sure that this gets placed on file. So next up, we actually have public input. So we have under public input, we have actually had a request about the Danes Hall Plaza, and we have Jack Kohler here along with his manager Amy. So I think Amy's going to do the talking. Jack's going to hide behind the curtains, I guess. So
Yes, he will.
Amy, if you want to just introduce yourself and then go ahead.
Yes, I'm Amy Clemensauer. I'm the business manager for the Danes Hall of Waupaca. And so first of all, I want to start by thanking all of you that were involved with our project. About a year ago, Mike was at this meeting discussing what was going to come along. So specifically, Mayor Brian Smith, Aaron Jensen, Justin Behrens, Roger Hansen, and Greg Grothman have played an important part in creating what we now have, which is an incredible outdoor space. If you've driven on North Main Street, you may have seen the process. One of our major goals was to transition from our historic building into Rasmussen Park to make it look like it belonged there the entire time that it exists, like the existence of our building since 1894. This current space is allowing for handicap access to our building. I've had people that have used it already that couldn't access our building before in their scooters. It's also allowing public access to Rasmussen Park. And we foresee it as being used as a beacon at Christmas time with hopefully at least a 12-foot tall Christmas tree that will be able to be viewed all of Main Street.
At least 12 feet.
I have big hopes. I'm the one who decorates all the Christmas trees in the hall, so you know I'm all about the Christmas trees. We're hoping it's also a great addition to such events like Halloween on Main. It'll allow for parade viewing, especially Independence Day parade, and of course it'll increase our seating capacity for our venue business as well as for our business in the Granite Cellar. The first day that the concrete was poured, we had like 3 calls asking if outdoor seating was going to be available this year, but not until spring. So the rocks have been placed, the cement has been poured. We're now filling in with landscaping with smaller rocks, and we are shopping for furniture and waiting for asphalt and lighting and railings. But it is coming along very well, and we want to thank you all for making this project a reality. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? I mean, I hope everybody's had the opportunity to take a look at it. I think, it's a huge, it was a huge project, obviously, but it was really a nice project. And I'm hearing a lot of compliments from people that are coming downtown and seeing what they've done at the end of North Main Street. So it really kind of finishes off what we've been trying to do in the downtown area. I mean, I guess we'll never be done, but it really does add a lot to it. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the Kohler family, too, for everything they've done. Appreciate that. Okay, we're still under public input, and I understand, Colin, you want to?
Yeah, I had something I'd like to mention. Wanted to take a moment to mention one of our exceptional students here in Waupaca, Sienna Tim, a junior here at the Waupaca High School, became the new record holder in the women's 5,000 meter on Friday night, September 8th, at a cross-country meet held under the lights at the Winnegamie Golf Course with a time of 20:31. To quote her coach, Jess Bank, as reported in the County Post, anytime an athlete breaks the school record, it's really exciting. Sienna's record is particularly special because she bounced back from a tough cross-country season last year and had to fight through injuries. Despite not performing as well as she hoped last year, she stayed focused and has so far accomplished great things this season. We're looking forward to seeing what the rest of the season has in store. Congratulations to Sienna, her parents, her coach, Jess Bank. If you'd like to come and cheer on Sienna and the rest of her teammates, the Waupaca cross-country team is hosting a meet on September 8th at 4:30. So congrats again to Sienna.
A little late for September 8th, but yeah. But
Thank you.
did you mean October 8th, I'm hoping?
So, did I say 8th? September 28th. September 28th
Okay.
at 4:30.
All right, thank you, yeah. Thank you, that's pretty cool. Really awesome. We like to hear good news like that. So, great. Any other public input? The public input, of course, is for non-agenda items, and if you want to use that time, council members or anybody in the audience to just brag about things that are happening in our community.
Yeah, I'd
We-
like to
We
brag.
don't want to hear the negatives, just
No,
tell
I
us
just
the
want
good
to,
stuff.
yeah, well, I want to brag a little bit. Although I'm a little hesitant because I heard maybe I shouldn't say anything, but this is in the municipality. The administrator from Swamico, they implemented a best practice that was created here in Waupaca, where the chamber, school district, and city partnered to fund a grant writing position. So he gives a proper reference, which is good. And I just think it's a real kudo to our community, and I think it's, hope our citizenry residents appreciate it, because it is a really a best practice that I'm sure will be implemented in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the staff and the Neville family for, bringing forth that challenge grant, so,
That never would have happened without
yeah,
that grant from the Neville family, so,
it's exceptional.
yeah,
It's
it's
really a great
exceptional.
thing.
And it's really cool to see that we have been forward-thinking in a number of areas. We need to brag about ourselves a little bit more, to tell you the truth. To that point, actually, Aaron and I took a trip over to Green Bay, and we were interviewed by WFRV TV, Channel 5, for the Tom Zalaski's, it's a show that will air at 7 a.m. on Sunday on October 6th, is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, local newsmaker, I believe it's
Yeah,
called.
so, and we had the opportunity to just brag about our community. So we took a lot of ammunition over there. They came over and took some cool pictures, so I look forward to seeing Aaron speak on there.
I was gonna say, I don't look forward to seeing it, but,
So they put you guys through makeup and everything,
no, Tom had it on, but we didn't get
We
it.
didn't, we didn't need it.
You guys are too pretty.
We didn't need it. They did raise my chair a little bit, so, yeah. That's about it. But it was pretty cool, and again, getting the opportunity to just brag about things that we've done in our community is pretty awesome. And keeping along with that grant writing thing, remember that in our committee of the whole meeting, how good that grant writer has been for our community, just to give you a fair warning. All right, any other public input? Yes, Mike, I'm gonna call on you in a second here. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I'd like to follow Mr. Dyker's.
Mike, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yep. I'm Mike Ollinger. I'll get into more of that in a minute.
Yep. Okay.
I'm also a substitute teacher at the high school. So I spend a lot of time with the high school, spend time with the kids. But going along with Mr. Dykstra's, I wanted to make a mention about one of the volleyball senior ladies. She just reached her 1,000th assist, which is a big deal. And that's Josie Peterson. I was fortunate enough to be announcing the volleyball game last week, and I got to announce that, and so I thought that that was an appropriate thing that recognized those high school accomplishments. So,
That's neat.
Yeah.
Josie's also a member of our public engagement committee with the city. So, very cool.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Mike. Anybody else have any public input? All right, let's go on to community reports, department head reports. And again, let's just start with Mike Ollinger reporting for the Waupaca Rotary Club.
good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the city staff, and all the guests. I am Mike Ollinger. I'm the Public Relations Director for the Rotary Club of Waupaca. This evening, I'm here at the request of the Waupaca Area Arts Cultural Network, or the WACN, to report on the relationship between the City of Waupaca and the Rotary Club of Waupaca. I would like to thank all the aforementioned people for the past and continuing support of the WACN, which, as we know, was a result of the Waupaca Cultural Plan that was initiated in 2018, along with their support for the Waupaca Rotary Club. As you may or may not know, Waupaca Rotary Club has been around for 30 years. It was founded in 1993 here in Waupaca. This year, again, we were celebrating our 30th anniversary as one of the major active organizations in Waupaca, and we're very happy to be here. This evening, I'd like to take you through some of the Rotary's recent work here in Waupaca. We are currently planning the dedication of the new clock celebrating 30 years of the Rotary Club in Waupaca here. This clock has been installed on the town square on the main street side of the library. The dedication celebration will be Tuesday, October 3rd at 5:30 p.m. This installation of this clock, purchase of the clock, has been a very big collaboration between the Rotary Club and the city to make this happen. This event is open to the public, and we're hoping to it's well received. So, did everybody get a chance to see the clock downtown here?
Yeah, we took a look at it. It looks like it fits.
Yeah, it really does. We've had quite a few comments on it already, just about how it seems like it's been here. It's just part of town. So that's really great. We're excited about that. We're also excited for our annual Rocktoberfest. Okay, not Oktoberfest, but Rocktoberfest downtown here this Friday, September 22nd. The partnership and support from the city for this event is how the event has become one of the most anticipated and successful events of the year for us and hopefully the city. This is one of the two major fundraisers for the Rotary Club. The other one is the Casino Royale that is usually held in February. Also, along with the two major fundraisers, Rotary has a Christmas tree pickup that helps a lot of different things as far as what we do with those trees. We help with aluminum can recycling, and we also help at such events as the Strawberry Fest. We do help out with that quite a bit. We assist parking for the 4th of July fireworks show down on Shadow Lake, and we also park cars at the Yellow Car Show. So as a result of all these fundraisers, the Rotary is able to distribute thousands of dollars to the good of the community here in Waupaca. So we're pretty happy about all that also. We continue to work hand in hand with the city and the upkeep and beautification of Rotary Park along the Waupaca River, as we all know. Just recently, we planted 2 new trees and installed a new park bench in the honor of one of our club presidents, Gene Wasserberg. As an example of the partnership and continued support of the WAC and by the city in the Rotary Park area, the crosswalk from the ramp from Main Street to the park has been repainted, and the prep work for that was done by the city. So then painted by a lot of the different volunteer people. Rotary has also adopted a stretch of highway to help maintain the cleanliness of the area, which is the main access point to the vacation area of the chain. This stretch of highway is Highway 22 south of Highway 10, between Highway 10 and the high school. So we have Rotary volunteers that go out and pick up that, and then all the bags of garbage are picked up. So that's a wonderful thing. As was presented by Cheryl Sletton in recent past, our Rotary Youth Exchange, or RIDE program, as some of you might know it, has gained momentum again this year. We have 2 local outbound students that are attending school this year in Germany. They'll be there all year. They left in August. We also have 2 inbound students that arrived in August, and they're staying with local families for the entire school year. The male is from South Korea, and the female is from Poland. And I've had the opportunity to see them in school, and it's just a pretty fun experience. As we have experienced in the past, the city has always been a willing partner in helping identify and provide opportunities for these inbound students, as far as just opening our arms up to them. So thanks for that. And then, as you may remember, last December, Rotary hosted an adult delegation from Tajikistan that focused on education technology. That's what they were here for. They were introduced at the council meeting in December here. We were fortunate to have an opportunity to host another open world delegation this year. This one being from Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is also a country in Central Asia. That's going to be October 13th through the 21st. We're hoping to have them at the October 17th council meeting, the same way we did with Tajikistan folks. This visit is supported by the U.S. State Department's Open World program. The visit will focus on learning about sustainable tourism here in Waupaca. What this means is that we are tasked with presenting, explaining, and demonstrating how tourism is in and around Waupaca and how it's created and it's sustained. So basically, what they're interested in is how to get tourism going in their country, how to manage it, how to maintain it, and how to keep people wanting to come back. And so we're tasked with that type of opportunity to demonstrate different opportunities around the city. We're going to be hitting all the outlying areas, doing things. We're very excited about it, and there'll be five members there. In conclusion, I hope that I have reinforced that the Rotary Club of Waupaca and the City of Waupaca have created a very successful partnership. We're looking forward to continuing to grow this partnership with the hope that the Rotary may continue to support the Waupaca Area Arts Culture Network in support of the cultural plan. Thanks for your time. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was really nice to hear everything that's going on here. Actually, I think we have a number of staff and at least one council member, 2 council members.
Paul.
Yeah,
I think so.
that are part of the Rotary Club too. Henry is, and Paul Hagan, Aaron, Eric, and then Laura, are you? No? Who's the other one?
Brett Rodin.
Oh, Brett Rodens. Okay, I was getting close. That's the ball. All right, so yeah, thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, let's go right into department head reports. You know, we've talked about these department head reports and you know, they put their reports in the packet and stuff like that. I have asked them to just pick out the highlights of what's going on here. We do have a pretty long council meeting tonight, as well as a committee of the whole meeting too. So they're aware of that, but we don't want to leave them short of telling us what a great thing their departments are doing. So, Eric, I'll start with you.
All right, I'll try and keep it quick. Hit some of the best of a large number of highlights here, and Jared will kick me if I go too long. Okay, so do want to call attention that we're still doing some work on the exhibit room with the donation money that we had received. We're still waiting for the last of the cabinetry there, and then we'll be doing a grand reopening once that's arrived. Liz Kinnear, our exhibit room coordinator, also has us applying for Americans in the Holocaust, which is a rotating American Library Association exhibit, so we hope we've got that. Our next exhibit up in October is going to be Waupaca History 101, which you should stop by and check out if you get a chance. It's going to be showcasing, in part, our newly digitized local newspapers from the collections at the library. We're going to be highlighting, as part of that, programming, some programming that highlights immigrant stories over the generations, all the way back to the founding of Waupaca. As part of that, Liz is collecting some stories from recent immigrants. And if you know of anyone that might have a story to share that as a recent immigrant, we have flyers handy at the library's main desk that you could share with them. We had a busy summer. We're up significantly in visits and checkouts versus the last 2 years. We're also seeing a lot of business with a little free pantry. That's booming. We had 2,000 items that went out in August. Hygiene kits are among the most popular items. We've also assembled a dedicated job center space for folks that are stopping by to use our job seeker resources. We continue to have more folks seeking us out over time for that. We are working to provide wayfinding so that more remote workers and entrepreneurs are aware of the meeting and working space, plus office machines that we have available for use by the public. We've seen a big surge post-pandemic in such usage of the library. And we have several retirements coming up, and I will get into those when we get to the Committee of the Whole. That is it.
All right, thank you, Eric. Anybody have any questions or comments for Eric? Sounds good. J-Rod, you're up.
Thank you very much, Mayor. My report can be found on page 25 of your packets. Continue with the zoning and building permits. Those continue to steadily flow in. Zoning, commercial building, and residential. A variety of projects. So that is great to see. SmartGov continues to work well for us for intake of permits. Our downtown partnership next meeting is October 12th. If you know of anybody downtown or anyone that has a stake in the downtown that would like to attend those meetings, they are more than welcome. It's a great forum to for the city to relay information to business owners and stakeholders and vice versa. So I encourage anyone who is interested to attend. A series of development updates, things like the Danes Hall Plaza, the old St. Mary's site that has a slight delay in their project, but they still hope to get started here soon, and a variety of others. Relogoing and wayfinding continues to occur. We're still working out the final details and all of that. The reevaluation has concluded. I believe letters will be being sent out either this week or next, is our estimation. And then the Board of Review and Open Book meetings have both been scheduled. I believe those have been posted or will be posted on Facebook and are also going out in other forms of communication. If people have questions, they can, of course, reach out to City Hall. And the final piece I have is to kind of go along with Henry's comment earlier about how Waupaca is becoming somewhat of a leader in items, just different items. We had a Waupaca business owner meet with, keeping the business owners' names out and the community out, just to keep it a little more generic. But our business owners met with another group of business owners from another community, and they had some really great things to say about our downtown. Some of them said that they were blown away by the downtown with the mix of shops and beauty. One of them said, your Main Street is poppin', and they're watching to see what we do next. They share that a lot of their customers talk about how they visited Waupaca, and they really like the shops and restaurants that we have available here. And then they had a lot of positive comments on the flowers and noted that they themselves are going to try to do flowers like that in their downtown. So it's just really great to see that things we're doing here, whether it's a grant writer or, how we're beautifying our downtown, and it's really making waves throughout the state. So it's neat to see.
Cool. Jarrett, thank you. Any comments or questions for Jarrett? All right, let's go over to finance. Steph?
Thank you. We worked on the RFP process for the shared ride taxi services, and we were able to get that posted on VendorNet. So we're just waiting to hear if we get any bids. So I'm pretty excited about that. And just trucking through the budget process, really. It's a lot going on. So I do want to say thank you to everybody who was able to come out to the employee appreciation luncheon last week. It was a good turnout. So thank you to who came. That's it.
Nice and fun. Thank you, Steph. Go ahead, Henry.
Good article in the paper today on Wilson, North Carolina. They fairly big city, about 50,000, but they were having a hard time with their public transit system. They had a fixed route bus system. And so they were touting the town for implementing a shared ride taxi service. And so I had to kind of chuckle because we've had it for, gosh, Mayor, 40 years? I think
Don't look at me.
well, I don't know. It's been around a long time.
Pete.
And I just thought that was like, okay, that's another thing we've been doing and just been doing. But they talk about implementing an Uber app. So I don't know in the course of your procurement, and maybe our ridership and our operators aren't there yet, but they're using basically, and I can get the article, there's a vendor in New York or something like that. But anyways, I thought, okay, shared ride taxi.
That's cool. It'd be neat to share that, if you could.
Yeah, I'll shoot it to you.
All right. Thanks, Henry. All right, and Steph, thank you. Let's head across the aisle there to Public Works. Justin.
Thank you, Mayor. My update's on page 29 through 32. Starting wastewater world, I have a few items. Our 9,000 digester, which is our main digester, is back in service. It will take some time for it to actually work like it should. It's a biological process, and during this time, there might be a little more odors than expected, so please excuse our smell. But we got it back online in the fall like we wanted to because we utilized natural gas out of this process and heat our buildings in the wintertime. We talked the facility management plan last council meeting. A part of that, we talked about the hierarchy, bigger things. One thing we did with that plan is we did some what was called bench testing, and it tested our chemical usage in our process. And the big one in our process is phosphorus, or used to reduce that. We spend over 20 grand on that chemical every year, and we compared that to 2 other chemicals just to make sure we're doing the right thing, most efficient, cost effective. And we just confirmed that we're using the best chemical. So I just wanted to make a note that while this plan seemed like we looked at all the big things, we looked at a lot of the smaller things because we're continually looking at our process and seeing if we can find any efficiencies and savings that we can. Our mercury samples continue to show lower trends, and this is huge. Obviously, mercury is bad for us and the environment. The thing for the utility is it's written within our permit. We get a variance, which means we can't hit the actual EPA number, so they give us a variance so we can stay above that. But and the trade-off is we have to have this mercury minimization program. A lot of staff time goes into that. IT gets involved, City Hall gets involved. We accept mercury items. We dispose of that for free. That's a cost. With our trends, we're getting pretty confident that on our next permit renewal, which will start next year, we may not have that requirement anymore. So that would just be a big savings of time and cost to, again, the utility. A couple people stole my thunder already. The rotary clock is up and looks great. That's a coordination, obviously, with the Rotarians and street department and, of course, facilities. The Danes home, too. We had a little bit of hand or work in that at the very beginning. Totally turned over now to Greenwood and the Danes home and their contractors, and it does look fantastic. Water side, more leaks. We're finding them. We have a leak detection program. We're going through it. We're exercising our valves. And when we do that, when they're old and rusty, we break them. But we have to do it. On the flip side, we are looking at a valve turner, which is just a tool, and it'll do it by itself. It should be a safety thing for the guys, but then also more efficient so we can do it more often, break less valves. We're going up to New London on Friday to check out theirs, and it's upon the budget completion in our capital purchase for next year. The new building, new Public Works facility building, the outside pre-engineered metal building is still going up. We're continuing that through the end of the month, so the shell should be totally complete, so the roof and all the sides by the end of the month. Some things are happening on the inside. We're getting some concrete poured. Some internal finishings are starting, so we're making some hay, even though it looks like about the same about a month ago. we got some big anniversaries down below, but we got one guy who's flirting with 40 years in our water department, Mark, of course. So we might see him again next year.
All right.
Show up to council.
Nice. Thanks, Justin. Anybody have any comments or questions for Justin? All right, let's go over to Parks and Rec. Hey, Laura.
Hi, all right, thank you. You can find my report on page 33, which is also my favorite number. The outdoor pickleball courts that we have been trying to acquire for a while now. We raised $7,500 in a grant from the Waupaca Area Community Foundation, so big thanks to them. I'm working directly with the middle school and Matt Basser, who is the maintenance head at the school district, to try and get some outdoor pickleball courts at the high school, the Chain, which is the CEC, and also at the middle school. So hopefully those will be coming soon, going from maybe 2 to 10 outdoor pickleball courts. We had very successful movie nights. One was August 15th. The other one was September 8th, and that was the September 8th one was done by the library. About 80 people at both. I just want to give a huge shout out to Casey Martinez, who came out of the woodworks and helped us both those nights. He was a huge, huge help for those. All right, so going down to community events, we have started all of our fall programming. Our numbers have either equated to years past or excelled those years. In fact, chess has gone up by like 20 kids, which is really exciting. We had a Blowing in the Wind collaboration event with Winchester and Historical Society, and for those of you that happened to go to that event, it was incredible. It was really moving, and it was a chance to sing along, which you don't often get to do. It was David H.B. Drake. He does a great, great job. So next time he's in town, I highly recommend checking him out. We had Fallarama last Saturday. Talk about a beautiful day to be outside shopping and seeing local entertainment. It was a huge success. And hopefully next time I can have some numbers of what we raised for our Friends of Waupaca Parks. And this is not on your list, but this Friday, grade 7 is going out to Eco Park for their environmental day, and that is in collaboration with Winchester and the school district as well. So all 7th grades going out there for the whole day. So if you're interested in seeing what they're doing, they'd welcome any guests popping out there to see. And they get to utilize all of Eco Park's new features like the boardwalk and the amphitheater and all those things that we've enhanced throughout the year. And for all of you to know, September 30th is the day that we close all of our parks officially. So bathrooms will be locked, water will be turned off, and that includes our beloved splash pad.
All right. Laura, I wish you could get a little more excited about your job and the things you're doing. Thank
I'll
you.
try.
Laura.
Sorry, Mayor.
Yeah. Any questions, comments for Laura? All right. Paul's sitting in for our chief, so Captain Paul Benchwell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Chief's report can be found on page 35, I believe. I'll just summarize that quickly. The Police and Fire Commission met on September 12th. Some of the things we discussed were we had done extra patrol on High Street. Ever since last year when High Street was redone, we've received numerous speeding complaints a few different times throughout the year. We had set up a directed patrol up there where officers were doing radar, and then we also set up our speed board. Just to highlight some of the statistics, we had 11,431 vehicles travel between July 2nd and August 13th. The average speed of those 11,000 vehicles were 25 miles per hour, minimum speed 20, and a maximum speed of 43. So with all that, the numbers are not too bad there, with the average speed being just a smidge over the speed limit. Next, talked about the Waupaca Recover Coalition. Our department is working with them. That group meets on a monthly basis, and it is a group that discusses alcohol and other drug addictions in the county. The coalition is holding an event at the Waupaca High School on September 21st from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And during that event, there'll be a resource fair and book signing by James Hamilton. There'll be guest speakers from treatment court, local vets, family members who were impacted by drug overdoses. Lastly, there'll be a panel consisting of law enforcement, sober living people, a physician, and drug court participants. And I will end with our statistics for the month of August. As a department, we handled 747 calls. There were 9 criminal cases referred to the district attorney's office, 138 traffic stops, 61 citations, and 123 warnings. We did have one officer injured who cut his finger when he had to force entry into a residence for an ambulance call. And it was a minor cut, but did need to go to the ER. And lastly, we are continuing to work with the finance department on the budget, finalizing the budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for filling in. Any questions or comments for Paul?
I got a question, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you
Justin.
tell me again what the time frame was the High Street data?
Yes, July 2nd through August 13th was the data.
Thank you, Paul.
I don't know, have we had a meeting since you guys had the kickball tournament? How did you guys do in that?
The first inning of the first game was kind of touch and go, but after that, we if it wasn't for that first inning, we would have won. We did win the second game, so you got to forget we're a lot older. Can't run like the 20-year-olds. So
Oh, okay.
They also improved dramatically after some donuts were put in your first
Yeah.
place.
and my daughter did dunk Aaron in the tank, so that was nice to see.
That's nice of her.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for being a good trooper.
No, I was just volunteering there.
Let's go to IT with, did you like that? Let's go to IT. Josh, how you doing?
Good. Moving forward on the projects approved at the last meeting, we've got our agreement with Spectrum signed and that in progress to double our bandwidth. We're meeting with the tower vendor tomorrow and have start working on permits for that project. And then Waupaca Online is doing the last part of the state broadband grant project we have, which was installing 4 high-capacity backhauls. One's been on back order the entire summer. They installed one half of it today, and then in the next couple of weeks, we're hoping to get the tower climber in to do the other side of that. And then once that's operational, I can submit all the paperwork and get our money and project done. So that's all I've got.
All right. Thanks. Any questions for Josh? Comments? Thank you, Josh, for coming on out here. Let's move on over to Barb, clerk's office.
So I did work with Bomar for the open book and board of review dates. Jared had mentioned the open book is October 24th, and that will be from 10 until 1, and then again 2 to 6. And then the Board of Review will be November 7th from 10 to noon, and those are both held in the council chambers. I was working with Josh and Jared on the SmartGov online permitting for the parking permits, and we are just about, there's a couple more things that need to be worked through, and those will be up and ready to go shortly. And then I worked with Aaron on finalizing the deputy clerk job position, or job description. And that's about it.
All right. Thanks, Barb. Any questions, comments for Barb? I do want to talk just real quickly about the reval of the properties in town. Like Barb said, we're having open book and then Board of Review coming up here. The letters for the revaluation, which I think Jared talked about, but those are probably going out early next week. You might have some questions on it. People that are watching, if your house has been revalued, whether up or down, you will get a letter. If it's unchanged, which is probably not the case, but if it's unchanged, you will not receive a letter. So, council members, you might want to be aware of that in case you get calls from any of your constituents about the reevaluation program. And if they want to know about open book, when they talk to you, of course, and you don't have the answers, just send them to the clerk's office, and they'll be able to answer all of those questions for you. All right? Sounds good. Let's go on over to Eric.
All right, thank you, Mayor Smith. Council members, my report can be found on page 43 of your packet. I'm just going to touch on a few things. Leadership series, where you get to hear from John Erschbaumer, principal of the WLC. tomorrow on proactive accountability. I'm highlighting this one because I know that there's at least one council member that asked if they could sit in, and I said absolutely. Council members, just know that you're welcome to sit in. 10 o'clock tomorrow is our session. So if you'd like to listen to John, I'm sure he would love to have you. Let's see here. Wanted to just highlight the fact, and Mike mentioned it, we talked a lot about the clock tonight. Council members, it would be wonderful if you guys could make it at 5:30 p.m. on October 3rd, and if we could have a full turnout for that dedication, that would be great. Jared briefly mentioned it, the update on the old St. Mary's site. I think it's worth kind of spending just a bit more on that and explaining a couple things because it's such a visible parcel in our downtown area. It has been sitting inactive for at least a month now, and wanted to explain that. So there was asbestos found in areas that were not expected to be found, which delayed the project. When you're working with contractors, they had a time frame and a window for the foundation to be taken out. The extra asbestos work caused them to miss that window for that specific contractor, which has kind of put the project on pause. But they have assured us in a meeting, Mr. Schulke did, that they would be starting soon. During that meeting, he did say by the end of September, so we are hoping that's the case. And then change in value notices have been talked about. Wanted to also mention, I wanted to just give Stephanie credit for a couple things. She's worked very, very hard on the shared ride taxi RFP with the DOT process. I know you're rolling your eyes, but you did. She also worked very, very hard and put in a lot of work for the employee appreciation luncheon. So an employee should also know that Stephanie did a ton of work for that event. So I think that is all I have, Mayor.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Any questions, comments for Aaron? Yeah, go ahead, Colin.
I'll second the appreciation for Stephanie. I grew up pouring concrete, and many of you guys who were there know that our crews were out pouring concrete that day. It's my understanding the concrete truck was late, so they couldn't come participate at the luncheon, but the luncheon came to them. And I think that says a lot about Steph and also about our employees, that they stick around and do what's needed on the job. So thanks to both of them.
Barb helped.
Stephanie and Barb. Sorry, I missed that.
It's okay.
All right, anybody else? Taking some notes here, sorry. Okay, next up, we have new business. License report number 1640. This is a Class A intoxicating liquor license and Class A for malt beverage license, and also a Class B fermented malt beverage license and Class C wine license for 1222 West Fulton Street. It's Danielle Doctor is the agent, and you probably better know this as the truck stop building. So, Barb, you want to set this up?
Sure.
Thank you.
Danielle, are you going to be speaking? Okay. So Danielle is here along with Martin and Jacob. And they are in the process of purchasing the truck stop, the 1222 West Fulton Street address, both the liquor store and the Three Squares restaurant. And I'll let Danielle speak.
Sure. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for having us here today. Like Barb said, I'm here with Marty and Jake. They're my business partners, well, husband and business partner. So tend to first want to say, to kind of go with something you guys kind of all have echoed throughout the night, is you guys have been extremely welcoming as a community, and everybody we've had the opportunity to meet has been extremely helpful. So I want to say thank you for that. But yes, we are looking to purchase the Clismet Three Squares restaurant, truck stop, and adjoining property. So if you guys have any questions, I guess I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce all of your partners here. This is a good time. You guys hope you combed your hair and brushed your teeth. You're on TV, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, just to echo what my wife said, everybody here has just been extremely welcoming. We've been working with Diana and Jim since probably late March on this, and so we're hoping to close the transaction out in late October. We know they've been instrumental in the community for 47 years that they've been here. With Mike speaking on behalf of the Rotary, I know Jim's been an active member there for a lot of years. So we'll continue to work with Stephen Carroll on the property. So they're going to be renting the repair garage and continuing doing the U-Haul, all that kind of stuff. So we'll take over the operation for the car wash, restaurant, and the convenience store. We're also going to be attending the town hall meeting on October 2nd as we're purchasing the mobile station over there as well. So,
Town of Waupaca.
yep. My wife and I live in Greenville, Wisconsin, so not too far.
Well, we can't wait till you move to Waupaca.
Right? Diana drove us around the chain on Memorial Day for about 3 hours. Took us around every road. And I tell you, it's beautiful. You can see why so many people are here. So, and then Jake is our business partner.
Jake Lamb.
I'll let
Yep,
him introduce
same,
himself.
jumping in with these guys. Really excited to be part of the community out here. It's obviously, it's beautiful. It sounds like it's growing. It sounds like you guys are doing amazing things. Looks like you got a good group of people in charge, and really excited to jump right in and keep time at the clock tower. Have fun. So thank you very much for being so welcoming.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
And
you
a
very
big shout out to Barb too. She really has guided us through this process to get here. So thank you.
This couldn't have turned out any better for her. We're talking personnel right here. Yeah, no, thank you. So we're trying to, the point is that, well, let me first of all say, are you still gonna have Jim waiting tables, cleaning tables and stuff like that?
As long as he'll.
As long as he
join
wants.
us.
Jim said he's going to continue to ride his bike.
We're gonna put our face on his billboard. So.
Yeah.
Too cool. Yeah. Okay, so what we're doing is really just transferring the Class A liquor license, the Class B beer license, and also the Class C wine license from the Klismets to the new owners. So that's the request tonight. So we need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
You had a lot of seconds, so I'm gonna go.
We'll let Lori have it.
Motion by,
Dimitri got it.
motion by Martin, who was the second? Chestnut, that we approve of the license report 1640. Any discussion?
And that's effective at the closing date, yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Henry. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, thanks. Good luck to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ken.
Looking forward to seeing you.
Different events.
Good luck.
Yep. And seeing you as customers.
Yeah, keep it up, keep it up. Well, moving right along then, we have a conditional use permit for 3H Brew LLC at 810 Churchill Street, 804 Churchill Street, 813 10th Street, 905 10th Street, 1018 Columbia Street. And Jarrett, you're gonna set this up for us.
I'd love to. So this one starts on page 89. The maps will probably help you out a lot on this one. So there are so many parcels. They are all under the same ownership of the owners of H.H. Hinder, who I believe we have in the audience today if there are questions. But they have grouped all of their needed conditional uses into one permit application just for efficiency and permit fee purposes. So this is for 804 Churchill, 905 10th, and 1018 Columbia Street. So if you remember in the past, all of the three parcels to the north of Columbia, which would include H.H. Hinder, a vacant building, and a house sitting behind it, all of those lots were combined. And this was with the intent of what they're bringing forward here today, of kind of combining all three uses, making it really a big event space. There'll be specifically an event space in the currently larger building that's currently vacant. There'll be a lot of remodeling that's done there. The house will actually be taken down and be used for green space on the parcel and outdoor purposes for the event space or whatever events they're having there. And then the brewery will stay the brewery and tasting room and guest customer space. To the south will be parking for the event venue, as well as storage. As well as storage. There is, of course, additional ideas that the owner continues to toss around, but nothing formal yet. And we want to continue on this process of what was for sure. So maybe seeing more in the future, especially when the site plan comes forward. But as of now, that is the information that has been provided. So in the parcels, the specific uses that they are looking for that will be conditional uses are convention and exhibit halls, and then the public or private parking lots. Convention and exhibit hall will only be the parcel to the north, and then the public and private parking lots are the parcels to the south. In addition to these, there's proposed permitted land uses, which include bars, cocktail lounges, pubs, taverns, commercial entertainment indoor, microbrewery, tasting rooms, as well as small incidental storage and retail. So, to reiterate, the specific uses being requested would be the convention exhibit halls and public or private parking lots that are separate from the principal structure. Happy to take any questions. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing.
I don't know. We'll find out. You want to introduce Mike? I don't know if you.
Yeah, so in the audience is Mike Stroik. He's the owner of H.H. Hinder, as well as the other parcels we've been talking about. So I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions or share his progress in renovating the current building or anything like that, if you have any.
I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's actually myself and my wife Jackie, the smarter, more talented half of the group. Better looking.
You are a smart man.
Our current progress is I just picked up our building plans. Our architect finished with them. We dropped them off here for approval. Jane has gone through them and approved them. So we're ready to pull permits and get going on the building. We've basically emptied the building, so it's ready to go. The next step would be to open the front up. Going to put a bunch of glass garage doors across the front, cut the floor open, put the sewer in, stuff like that. The building will be called the 810 building, and we wrote out the word 8 and then put the 10 on it. Jackie wanted to class that up a little bit. The pub in the main event space, the big event space, will be the Pearl Pub, because we wanted to tie it in with the Zwicker. So Pearl, like Knit 1, Pearl 2, Pearl Pub. And then a smaller room on the side in the southwest corner will be the Zwicker room. So we'll tie that all together. And she's got a lot of great ideas. We're pretty excited to get going on it. Right now, we're working with, we hired Rettler Corporation out of Stevens Point to work on our site plan and our green space, and we'll be talking to Jared and Aaron pretty soon here.
That's cool. It's cool to see that building is being reused. It's been sitting vacant since, obviously, the school district has vacated that building and some of the other buildings that Mike's talking about it. Sorry for reminiscing a little bit, but Zwicker Knitting was in that building at one time, a long time ago, and they used to knit mittens. My mother used to work there when she first got married. So it's kind of a cool thing to talk about. I especially said that for you, Jared, because that's a long time ago.
In the 60s and early 70s, there was 150 knitting machines running in there. So we can still hear them when it's quiet.
The ghost of Halloween. There we go. All right, so let's not get off task here. We actually are just looking for allowing this conditional use permit to go through with the conditions that Jared has explained and are up on the screen. Anybody have any questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
So moved. Go ahead.
Motion by Lori. Second by Henry? You okay?
Yes.
Okay. Motion by Chestnut, I'm sorry, and second by Veliker, that we approve the conditional use permit for these properties. Any further discussion? Barbara, call the roll.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thank you. Mike, good luck to you. Look forward to
Well, and
seeing
I
you.
have to, can I also echo too that the staff and the community has been very welcoming to us and treated us very well, and we're happy to be here.
Well, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, you also.
too, Mike.
Thanks for hanging in here. All right, we have a couple of ordinance that have first readings. The first one is ordinance number 10-2023. This is an ordinance amending 17.102 zoning district map as allowed for under 17.700. Again, as I said, it's first reading. Jarrett, you're back up.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This one starts on page 106 of your packets. So if you look at page 108, there's a zoning map there that shows this property is currently zoned industrial, but it does have a single-family home on it. This is somewhat of a cleanup, as the property owners would like to continue using it for a single-family home. It is in the future land use map as single-family. So it only made sense for them to come forward, request the zoning change, as it was compliant with our future land use map and zoning intentions, and get it switched to an R2 district so that they can continue using and adding to their residential property. The reason they can't do it now is it's a non-conforming structure, as it's a residential in an industrial parcel. So they're looking to just clean that up so that they can have things like a pool, additional accessory structures, and possibly additions or whatever they'd like to add to their house. So it's somewhat of a cleanup, just to allow them to do what they'd like to do.
Cool. All right, this is the first reading, so it will be brought back at our first meeting in October, with any comments that we might get from the public or obviously from staff or council too with that. So again, first reading. Next up, we have ordinance number 11-2023. This is an ordinance under the City of Waupaca, Chapter 13 Municipal Utilities, 13.01 Water Utility, Section 10 Lead Service Line Replacement, amending Chapter 13.01 Parent 10. First reading, and Justin, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. So the ordinance, or the review, is starting on 114. Behind that, I have our current ordinance, and then also showing the edits that would lead or would happen with approval at the next council meeting. So this is our lead service line ordinance. This has already been reviewed by our utility board and recommended to the council to adopt and move forward with. This is changes as we're seeing the lead programs, the regulations, and trying to stay up with that. So we first initially adopted this ordinance. Lead became to the forefront of the nation, and we wanted to be proactive on it. Now, with the changes that have occurred, reviewing our data, we are making some adjustments, and I'll try to keep this brief and go through the changes section by section. So the first section is with the record keeping. DNR and PSC wants us to keep better records, meaning to start keeping information on the private side lateral. So that was never a thing in the past. That has become a thing now. So we're just codifying that to ensure compliance. Section 2 deals with when we receive Safe Drinking Water Loan Program funding. And when that occurs, if we do replacements, the entire line needs to be replaced. If we don't do that, then we violate basically their regulations and risk getting funding reduced or eliminated altogether. That's nothing new. So whenever we've received funding in the past, we've done whole replacements. Section 3, repair reconnection prohibited. Here, the change was to better define on the private side the type of material. So in our system, we don't believe we have fully 100% lead lines. However, we wanted to better define that if we happen to find one on the private side, there's no and ifs or buts about it, that needs to be replaced. Private side is typically galvanized or copper, and depending on where you look, either EPA or DNR, it could be defined as a lead line. Section 4 is the big change of the whole thing, where exception can be granted instead of replacing both sides, which public side and private side. We would replace the public side, which is where we know the lead is at. So once we replace that side, the private side, which if it is not lead, if it's galvanized or copper, we'll put them under a flushing and testing protocol, which we've developed. So after we put it back into service, we flush the line, we sample it. If that comes back underneath the regulations of the lead and copper rule, and NR 809 is listed in there, we put it back into service after a second flushing, educate the property owners, and we move on. If we get our first sample is high, then we do a second test. If the second test is high, then we have to replace it per the lead and copper ruling. If the second test is low, we flush it, put it back into service. And this is mainly just to basically to give the private owner an option. So up to this point, there was really no exception. It had to be replaced. And now with the state of the industry, with inflation, that puts a large financial burden on property owners. And also with the funding cycles and the Safe Drinking Water Program changing, that funding is not readily available from outside sources. So here we're given that the option as long as we can determine that it is safe for those people to drink, which that's what that describes there. Section 5, owner election, the change in there was instead of giving them 30 days of notice, we made it 60. Again, we're trying to work with our residents and come up with a good fit for what works with them and also us, as long as our water is safe. Section 6, financing of replacement by city contractor. Here we made a tweak to the assessment process. So if we are going to put it on an assessment, we reduce the minimum amount of $200 per year to $150 a year, and then increase the installments from our standard 8-year installment to a 10-year. And again, that is just trying to make it more cost effective, or I guess less of a cost burden, I should say, to our residents. So, like I said, it is following the ordinance, showing those changes, and that's the gist of it, Mayor.
All right. Justin, thank you for that explanation. Anybody have any questions? Again, this is the first reading, so we'll see this at our October 3rd?
Yep.
Right? October 3rd meeting. Dave, go ahead.
Just a secretarial thing, Justin, on the owner election at section 5, you changed 30 to 60, but the word 30 is still written there, so make sure you change that type to 60 right in front of the parentheses.
Good catch, Dave. Thank you. Dave P.
Well, it's, it's Alan Keelan Jr. is who that is.
Just an old teacher.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Yeah. And again, that's, things like that are why we have first readings, obviously, not only to get public input, but also to make sure that we get it right. So it worked. All right, so we'll see that at the next meeting. Thanks. Justin, thank you.
Yep.
It looks like you're still up, though. We have resolution number 1549. This is a resolution declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing WLP. Go ahead, Justin.
I got her. Yeah, so
Yeah,
page
thanks.
119, SDWLP is Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. So we did put an application, even because we still are seeking that funding. As part of the application process, I need this resolution. We did this the last time in 2016. They're asking for it to be renewed. Basically, what the way the program works and how this resolution is worded, with the program, when we do the replacements of the laterals, we typically upfront the cost, and then we seek reimbursement from the DNR after the fact. So this resolution is just declaring that we have the financial viability to upfront that, either a cash or a bond, and then have the ability to wait, whether it takes 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months to get that reimbursement back from the Wisconsin DNR. So this does not accept the application or any type of funding. It's just part of the application process. So again, a part of the submittal that we turned into the DNR, they wanted this updated, and we will have a final say after we receive, they post their listing of the funding and where it is all going. We can make a determination at that point, and if we're gonna accept the funding from the DNR.
All right, excellent. If you're okay with that, then Mr. Behrens is recommending that we approve resolution number 1549.
Move to approve resolution 1549.
Second.
Motion by Perchatsky, second by Olson, that we approve resolution number 1549. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. License report number 1641. This is arcade amusement device license, and you can find that on page 120 of your packet. And again, it's just for the Three Square Restaurant. They're transferring license over. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dimitri.
Are these in fact gambling machines, or are they amusement devices? By that I mean, do they pay out?
Yes, they do. They're gambling machines.
They pay out.
Correct.
Then by state statute 245, they're illegal to have or to play, for that matter. And so I don't think we should be licensing them.
Okay, so the request is to transfer the license from the owners, previous owners, to the new owners for this arcade amusement device license. Any discussion? Henry, go ahead.
I'm trying to pull this back from memory, so I could be wrong. I thought Police Chief Goke came to the council and asked that we remove enforcement of this from our local codes, and that the responsibility for enforcement is clearly on the state officials and not on the city. And I don't know that that is entirely correct. I'm trying to.
Well, you.
No, I don't know.
So I think the best way to answer that, Henry, is you're pretty darn close, but it actually was initiated by the state of Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, and they actually took the jurisdiction away from the municipalities, and they put it in their hands. As long as they have a liquor license and they have 5 or less machines, they are not in violation.
Thank you for clarifying.
Well, it's still against the law if they own 5 or less machines. They can be penalized up to $500 per machine.
They cannot.
I'm looking at the law right now.
You're only reading, I'm not going to get into an argument with it, but we have approved these like all other communities. Your choice is to either approve them or not approve them. We do not have jurisdiction over these. The Wisconsin Department of Revenue has jurisdiction over those. We are receiving revenue from approving these machines. So, I mean, it seems like every time we go through this, we have that same discussion. And, you know, I guess I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to give you all the information tonight. And it's been a while since I've been involved in this too. But again, the city of Waupaca has no jurisdiction over these machines. The only thing that we can do is either approve or disapprove of these machines in our community. So that's really council's decision. Paul, go ahead.
Mayor, so by voting no, they still have the machines, we just don't get the revenue from the.
I think if you vote no, I think they would not be allowed to have those machines in their building. But you would be also going against what you approved.
Right, well, if the state has jurisdiction over the machines, I don't think we can force them to remove them. We just sacrifice the money, the $100 a machine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I don't have any history on whether other communities have disallowed these, to tell you the truth. But, Dimitri?
According to state statute 245.3, parent 2M, if the violation involves the possession, operation, setup, collection of proceeds, participation in earnings or maintenance of, or involves acting in the custodian of anything of value of bet or offered to be bet on, not more than 5 video gambling machines on premise for which there is a Class B or Class B license or permit has been issued, the person may be penalized as followed. If the violation involves 1 video gambling machine, the person may be required to forfeit not more than $500. If the violation involves 2 video gambling machines, it's $1,000, and so on, all the way up through 5 gambling machines may forfeit $2,500.
So it is not, as long as they have a Class B license and they have 5 or less machines, it is not a felony to hold these machines.
Not a felony, but they can be penalized.
They can, but they haven't been. They can be, and it's a misdemeanor.
Okay, so
Yeah.
because the state isn't going to enforce it, we're going to go ahead and profit from allowing it in our community?
Well, that's really up to you as a council, whether you decide to do that or not. I can only tell you what we've done in the past. And this comes up between 2 of our council members every time, you know, and it's still been approved every time. And I appreciate you bringing it up again. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that, you know, it's truly up to the council to decide what to do. And we're no different than any other city council or town or village in the whole state. This isn't just happening in just our community.
I certainly appreciate, Dimitri, your feeling about this, because it's probably a moral, ethical issue for you. But I think if we're going to talk about this, we should talk about it in the totality of all these machines in all our establishments, and not just one.
Absolutely.
So maybe it's something we got to talk about later. But we've got a new operator coming in. You know, we want, you know, they're buying an existing business. I'm sure there's a cost center developed in the, you know, when they were looking at buying this machine or the establishment. So, yeah. So I'd hate to kind of make a statement on just one establishment. I don't think it would be fair to them or equitable to them.
Okay. Sorry, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I don't intend on picking on one establishment. I'm just saying, where are we going to go from this point forward? Are we going to continue the practice of endorsing, thereby encouraging people to break the state statute? You know, this gambling leads to problems beyond just someone losing a buck in a machine. I mean, it can
Sure enough.
cause theft.
But there's a lot of things in life that people overdo, and people sometimes don't, buckle their seatbelts. So I don't know that we need to be the moral police, but if it's a bigger topic, we should talk about it and maybe approve this and just know that that maybe we need to talk about it as a whole.
Okay. Any other discussion? Anybody would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt, approve license report number 1641.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Veliker, a second by Prochatsky, that we approve license report number 1641. Any discussion? Barb will call the roll.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Nay.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
All right. Next up, we have communications and recommendations of the mayor. Don't forget that we have a committee of the whole meeting after this, as we probably will for the next few meetings, so we can get through our budget process. And tonight's discussion is about personnel within the city. Aaron, do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Anybody else have anything for the good of the meeting? All right, we would need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Peterson, that we adjourn our regular scheduled council meeting until our next scheduled meeting, which is Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023, subject to call. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. We're adjourned at 7:22 p.m. We're gonna take till 7:30. We'll start the committee of the whole meeting at 7:30. All right. Well, it's pretty simple here, but this is the committee of the whole meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. It's Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. It is 7:30 p.m. and I'll call that meeting to order. Barb is going to take roll, but I mean, we have the same people in attendance that were at the council meeting. So let's go ahead and approve the agenda so we can get into the nuts and bolts of the meeting. Anybody want to approve the?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Veliker, second by Prochatsky, that we approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against, say no. Motion carried. We are not going into closed session like we did last year. Remember when we did personnel? Aaron and I talked in length about that a little bit, and we felt like we don't, everything that we're going to talk about tonight doesn't, it's not going to be individually driven here. So it will be, it's easy enough to do in public forum here. So with that, I'll actually turn it over to Aaron.
Okay, and I'm actually going to step to the podium, as are the other department heads as they speak, so.
So remember, as he goes through this is, all fits into our discussion about the budget, and personnel obviously makes up, I never know the exact percentage, but it makes up about 75% of our total city budget is personnel. So this is probably as important of budget meeting as we have.
Long password
Yeah. Yeah. Darn IT guy makes me keep changing it.
there. There you go.
All right, well, council members, just as a reminder for personnel, what this workshop is typically intended for is a lot of times it is meant for department heads to bring forward considerations for either added staff or the restructuring of staff, and those are the things we typically like to highlight as we continue to move through the 2024 budget planning process. And as is typical in past years, given some of our shared revenues, just general revenue challenges that we have and rising costs, it's not often that we have a straight addition to our staff without finding efficiencies. And this year's no different. This year we're looking at restructuring a couple positions to gain efficiencies and to better position the city to serve our residents and businesses. And I'll talk about a couple of those first, kind of coming directly from my office, and then you'll hear from each of the department heads on anything that they are working on or have been working on and will be proposing as far as the 2024 budget. So the first one is a restructuring of the grant writer position, and then also a restructuring of the deputy clerk's position, which would involve an increase in investment in training as well as performing wage analysis, and I'll get into details of all of that. So first, let me talk some details about the restructuring of the grant writer position. As most know, the grant writer position is actually an employee of the Chamber Foundation currently, and we pay a third of the wages tied to that position. It's a 30-hour-a-week position. It does not have benefits currently, and it is at $51,000 per year. The school district also pays a third of the wages, as does obviously the chamber. So over the past 3 years, or since 2020, the grant writer positions brought in well over $3 million to the community. For the city of Waupaca, it's been well over $2 million. The city has been the biggest beneficiary, and we have found that we do tend to have more opportunity from the types of grants that are out there. We certainly have the biggest dollar amount type grant opportunities. What this proposal is it's proposing bringing the grant writer position in as a city staff employee to provide that position full benefits, which the chamber just doesn't work in that chamber role right now. Would also bring that grant writer position from 30 hours a week to 32 hours per week, so up a couple of hours. But it would be a little bit of a unique position in that they would be considered full-time at 32 hours a week and getting the full benefits. Now, I will tell you, and Henry mentioned it prior earlier in the regular council meeting, that since Greg has been with the city of Waupaca and with the school district and the chamber, there has been communities around the state that have said, hey, well, that's pretty cool what's happening there. We want to do the same. And as that's happened, they have, and I know Greg has seen grant writers get hired in maybe the $70,000, $80,000 range. So in that $51,000, we were soon finding we were not competitive. Now, we're proposing that we give a full benefit package, keep him at the $51,000 because, in all honesty, I have spoke with Greg, and we know that he values that 32-hour-a-week schedule more than an extra $20,000 to $30,000 in wages. So we feel like this is a win-win for the organizations and for the position. Greg has also mentioned that it's not that he doesn't feel like this is a position that you can just sit in an office for 40 hours a week and pound out grants and be effective in doing that. So this is a structure that I think works for everyone. It's noteworthy also to say that this has been presented to Ron, and to Terry at the chamber, and they are supportive of this. I can't speak for their boards, as I don't believe it's gone to them, but I do know that they are supportive of this change. This would also result in Greg moving his office space from the Chamber of Commerce building to the city of Waupaca, and we feel like just positions the city to take advantage of a lot of revenues long term. So let me move over to the deputy clerk's position for just a second. So the deputy clerk's position, as everyone knows, Barb has been doing a fantastic job in the clerk's role for about 9 months now, really all of 2023. And throughout that time, it's allowed us to kind of take a look at the department, take a look at the position, and evaluate how it's going. And it has been going very, very well without many hiccups with just Barb in that office. We will say that it has not been a heavy load for elections this year. It's been 2 elections that have been smaller elections. Next year, it could be 4 elections, could be bigger elections. And we do think that there is some need for additional help to meet all of the needs of the clerk's office, which is a very, very important office. But we feel like that can be done in a 20-hour-a-week position. So that's what we're proposing in this, is about 20 hours a week at about $23 an hour. They would not get full benefits. So that would be hired in January. So when you take those 2 things, you have a net impact of about a $21,000 savings after some of it's charged off to utilities and really sewer and water at 10%. And then also the revenue comes in from the school district and the chamber. It's important to note that the school district and the chamber would also continue to pay for 1/3 of the wages and the training and development. They would not pay for the benefit costs. That would fall completely on the city. And this is kind of that transition to, okay, we've been in it for X amount of years. The city proportionately is gaining in this, and we've put together a plan here to not really increase general fund expenses. Now, instead of, when you look at that $21,000, what I am requesting council to consider is, instead of just a straight reduction of $21,000 in the general fund, I'd like to look at this as an opportunity to provide a little more training opportunities, and specifically training opportunities for the police department. We have seen some turnover in that department, and we have gotten some feedback throughout that turnover that there is some frustration over a lack of ability to go through some trainings that they would like to go to. And I believe that is very important. Also, from a leadership standpoint, having our department heads and our middle management bolstering some of that training budget. And then also a big one is paying for and budgeting for a wage analysis to be done on an annual basis. We've talked a lot about compensation in our strategic planning process. We've talked a lot about compensation in the new personnel committee when we did some exercises there. And I think we have also talked about how we haven't had a full third-party compensation study done in 20 plus years. And in talking to other city administrators, I will tell you that when those full compensation studies are done, I have not talked to an administrator yet that was like, yes, that was a really positive thing for our organization. It has largely been a morale killer, so to speak, rather than a morale boost when these things get done. There's reasons for that. Sometimes is it can't get fully executed, or it doesn't get fully executed. There's disagreements in how it was done, so on and so forth. I was able to, at the Chief Executives Conference in August, I was able to talk to the city administrator for Fond du Lac. Fond du Lac is largely recognized as a excellence in the financial management from a municipality standpoint. And he was able to tell me kind of a system they turned to in about 2018-ish. Instead of having a full-blown compensation study done, what they got support from their city council to say, we're going to budget for a wage analysis to be done by Carlson Detman, which is kind of the firm that does it throughout the state for municipalities. And it's on a request basis. So I think when we're talking about compensation, especially in today's day and age, I think there are probably some positions that are under market. There are some positions that maybe feel like they're under market and maybe aren't under market. And he said that has helped immensely in both. What they do in Fond du Lac, and what I'm proposing us to do, is to have a similar relationship with Carlson Detman, which means that on a request basis, any staff member, if they feel like they're not paid market wages, they can request to have that reviewed by Carlson Detman. It's a $300 cost per position. Now remember, if we have 55 positions or full-time staff, we only have 35 positions because many hold the same position. And they don't put a limit on who can request in a given year. And they have green lighted everyone to say, okay, we believe as a council that if we have a staff member, they should be paid market rate. And they take those requests largely in the first half of the year so they can work it into the budget planning exercise for the following year. So it doesn't happen immediately. And the consequence, which it's not all easy, right, is that we don't know the results of those. So we don't know the results of what this will come back as until it does. And there may be challenges that come from all of the results of those wage analysis. And those are challenges that would have to be worked through the next budget process. So, may it be less challenging than we think? Maybe. May it be more challenging than we think and lead to difficult decisions? Maybe. I don't know. I can't say that. I guess if we did do this, we would just be saying, if we have a position, we feel like we're okay with saying they should be paid market rate. And that's the moral of that story. Now, one reason that the Fond du Lac administrator really liked it was he said, well, that first year you're going to get, potentially 75% of your staff is going to ask for it, right? Especially maybe in our situation where we haven't had a third party do it in a long time. So if we budgeted for that, we'd be right around that $6,500, $7,000 mark to do it. Compare that to a wage study, a full-blown wage compensation study, which might be $20-some thousand. And that wage study might be outdated in 3, 4, 5 years. So this way, theoretically, it may go from 75% request to maybe 20 to 30% request on average, because typically they don't see the same positions coming back every year. They say, oh, there's no reason to believe I haven't kept up with market rate. I'm not going to request that. So maybe 7,500 the first year, and maybe you tone it back to budgeting 3,000 in the future. So anyway, that would be a part, as far as paying for this, that would be a part of our savings that we see through this restructuring. I think it's important to also say that we know, right, we're going to lose people to Appleton at times, and we're going to lose people to Green Bay and Madison's and some of those communities, La Crosse, whatever it may be. What we're trying to avoid is we don't want our compensation levels to be a reason that we're losing people to New London or Clintonville or wherever it might be, comparable communities, and that's what we're looking to solve for here. The other last thing I'll say on this is making the assumption that benefit packages are largely the same, because we're not looking at anything other than wage analysis. And yeah, you can point to things, and there are differences in some. I would say our benefit package is good, but I would also say that they are pretty comparable across the board in what I have seen. So it wouldn't be looking at benefit packages. And there'd be separate decisions on benefit packages every budget year. So if we have a 25% increase in insurance premiums, okay, well, that's another hard decision. What are we doing with that? That's completely separate from the wage analysis thing. So I've babbled way too much. The mayor's looking at me like, shush. So I'll leave it to any questions at this time.
You might have babbled, but you did it a lot shorter time than you did when you explained it to me.
Yeah, you get to hear all this stuff twice, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I think the challenge that we always face is we've got, a third of our positions are positions where there is a comparable private sector. Okay, a lot of them are public works. Obviously, the police are kind of unique to their own. We've got, positions. And to me, you got to look at total compensation when you're looking at private sector, because, our benefit package, I would take a bet on that. That is going to be better than a private sector.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where you're talking about where it gets a little difficult. And I don't know if it's appropriate for us to get way in the woods but maybe as part of this, the council should have a kick at the cat or whatever about what positions might need a private sector comparable. I don't know, does Carlson Detmer? Do they pull private sector stuff as well?
In their relationship with Fond du Lac, they do not. They only compare it to other comparable municipalities. And I think what they've said there in Fond du Lac is they basically took the stance that, yeah, we know we may lose also some to private sector, and it might be because of pay. And you're right that then the benefit packages may be very, very different, but also the reason that those employees are leaving and going from the public sector to the private may also be very different. And it may not be about the compensation, it may be about a philosophy or whatever it may be. So it would not, good question, it would not take into account private sector. Yeah, Scott.
The grant writer position, with the COLA being added in your sentence here on January 1st as determined by council, are the two other entities on board with us deciding the COLA, or is that just going to be will they contribute to the, the overall package if we give 3%? You know what I'm saying? I guess I don't know how have you approached that?
That's a great question. So I would envision us working together collaboratively on that. So one of the things, if you read the contract, you'll see there's also a change in the direct supervisor for that position. It's no longer 3 people because it's not very clean. It's the city administrator. But I also wrote in there that the city council will direct the city administrator position to work collaboratively with the 2 organizations to ensure the intent of this.
Okay.
I don't anticipate working differently with them at all. I think it would look the exact same. And how I would treat that now is, no, I would work with the school district and the chamber. And is it possible that maybe that's a different cost of living adjustment because of that? It's possible. That's how I see it happening.
Okay.
So I see that the salary is split 3 ways. Why is the city covering 100% of the benefits?
Because we kind of always knew that so we went a third, and we always knew that at some point it was going to be looked at as who's benefiting the most here. And the city is benefiting the most from a dollars standpoint, and we have reason to believe that we probably will be positioned to in the future with the types of opportunities that are out there. So, you could argue, I guess, for another structure. We have an ability to do it because of this restructuring without being not without being a negative impact, being a positive impact long term. And it also just is logical and fair, in my opinion.
Well, and we do, just to add to that, we do add a couple of things that I think are very important to that. Number one, he will move from the chamber office over to City Hall, and he adds more than just his grant writing. I mean, he sits in on every one of our dirt meetings. I know Colin's been at a couple of our meetings, and he's been a very integral part of those meetings also. So in addition to doing grant writing, he's an asset to the staff and the city council that you might not even know about. So I think it's well worth our cause. Quite honestly, and I told Aaron this too, this guy should have always been getting benefits. We should not have hired a person without giving him some benefits. And so we're also making it fair to him.
Yeah, I would echo. I mean, he's brought in a tremendous amount of money to the community. I guess I don't have an issue if we're basically making him our employee and he's more than justifying his salary. I was just curious, and I think to Scott's point, with the COLA too, I guess I had a question on that too, because typically the school district doesn't settle on that number until the spring. So I don't know how you guys are going to do that in January, but that'll have to be something you guys will have to
Well, really,
determine.
it's, I get that too, but really, I think we're probably making it harder than it really is with the COLA, because we have a contract with the chamber and we have a contract with the school district. So if we give, for example, a 3% pay increase to him, you know, they will have to approve that 1/3, and it's outside of the COLA discussion. It's just a contract agreement. So that's really what it is. Yeah.
Colin?
I agree with the value of the grant writer position, and this seems to me to be a good idea. I would caution everybody at taking a look at that large number, 3 million and change, and realize that that's probably not a feasible number to continue. If he's been with us for 2 years, I don't think we should continue to expect that. The reason I'm saying that is because the lion's share of that money, as I understand it, was from the the COVID money. So if you're, I want to support this role, and I do support this role, but I don't want there to be an expectation from the community that this grant writer is going to somehow produce that kind of return every single year. I think he's worth it. I'd stand up and say that to anybody, and I'm just cautioning the community and the people here that type of return is probably not feasible going forward. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. I think that's a fair opinion. There's some specific grant dollars out there in that time period because of some rescue money. CDBG grant money for utility assistance was a part of that. So do I think he's going to be extremely successful and be a huge benefit for us? Yeah. Do I think he's going to hit the $3 million maybe not. But maybe, I don't know.
But the expectation is that he's gonna bring in more than what we're paying him.
Yeah, right,
So-
for sure. I can confidently say that.
I guess the reason I'm saying it is I don't want there to be a day where he feels like he's not, like the role isn't, I don't know how to say it, like, oh man, we expected this and you're not performing. I don't want that to be an expectation, so that the role itself, although he'll be successful at it, becomes a failure in people's eyes. So that's my point of saying anything, is to try and almost protect that role for the important role it is.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you're just talking the position, the person is different. In this case, the person's different. I mean, he's like the most laid-back guy that's going after money that I've ever seen. So, you know what I mean? But you're right, that we have to look at it as a position too. Sometime maybe in the future too, hopefully not, but you never know, so.
Dimitri?
I was wondering on the $300 market analysis sort of thing, if an employee requests that.
You gotta hop up to your microphone.
If an employee were to request the $300 market analysis of their position, what happens if it comes in less than what they're making?
Yeah, that's a great question.
We probably had the most discussion on this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So Fond du Lac, and I would propose to do it the same way as well. They do not they don't decline to pay. They don't redline people. They get cost of living increases as council votes on them. So yes, is that possible? Yeah. And that's how Fond du Lac handles it. That's how I would propose we handle it.
So in other words, their pay can only be adjusted upwards based on the result of.
Correct.
The
Well,
analysis.
that's the way Fond du Lac handles it. We have not made that decision on how we want to handle that.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's one example of how it can be done.
Yeah.
Right.
You can ask the other side of the question is, if you do this, you pay the $300 and you do it, and this person's compensation, because it's almost like arbitration here. It's, if we go through this package and this person is to receive this much in increase, we have to honor that. That's what's happening here. But we don't, I hope you understand that. We have to honor that amount of that increase, but we don't have budgeted money to cover if there are increases, so they have to they're gonna have to find it within their budget. So it could affect other positions. If you find one that's a large amount, so.
Corey, go ahead.
Corey, go ahead.
I mean, and Aaron, you may not necessarily have an answer to this at this time, but let's say I work for the city and I approach you and I say I want an analysis. What does that process look like? Is there a form I need to fill out? Do I just shoot you an email? Do I get a huge packet of papers?
Yeah.
How easy is the process for the employee that's asking?
So if we replicate Fond du Lac, it's very, very simple. It's a simple request to their HR or finance department, copied into the city administrator or city manager, and then that gets forwarded on to Carlson Detman, and they review it. They give the results back to the finance director, HR, city manager, and that's how it works.
So there's
not a
minimal
huge
work on our end.
Do we have a standard request form that we think is, maybe we haven't got that far yet, but
Okay.
minimal work, fairly simple.
Yeah, because I mean, I like this idea. I don't want to see this creating significant amounts of paperwork and time on our end.
I think that's why we like this.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the
Better than
reason.
doing a full pay scale,
Sure.
you know? So, yeah, good point. Henry, go ahead.
Can I flesh out the scenario of the analysis comes back and the position is under compensated by 15%, let's say, just throw out a number. So you said the department where this position is located, if we're gonna honor it, the department heads are gonna have to figure out how to pay for it within their own budget.
Well,
Do they, well, my bigger question is, do we want to go down a road, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, I'm just raising the question, where we could look at total compensation? Let's say I come in on 15% under compensated. Well, I might say, give me another 3 days of vacation, I'm cool. Or something. Now we have potentially 50 different compensation packages in theory. But there might be a way to skin the cat where we don't have to come up with more
kicking it,
money.
and now you're skinning it?
Well, I don't know. I just, because I know early on, we talked about trying to change personnel management, and this is where, you know, people can, you know, kind of have their own unique compensation package that works for them. If we find that they're undercompensated, I don't.
Could we build a layer into that? Potentially. And that was mentioned in the strategic plan through the group brainstorming. I think that'd be up for debate. Fond du Lac does not do that. Could we? I think it could be discussed.
Again, I don't know that how I feel about it, but I am concerned that if we go, what are we trying to solve? Are we finding a problem? What's that saying? Finding a solution to a problem? Are we experiencing high turnover? Is compensation an issue?
Yeah, good question. I think I would say that we have had high turnover in the police department. And I would say we have not in other departments. It's talked about a lot. It impacts morale because there is a belief that maybe that some are not paid market rate. And it's probably a truth in some areas too. Yeah, I think your alternative, I mean, I'm just going to say it, like, right, we just talked in this conversation, the grant writer position is an example of a different alternative, right, in which he said, Aaron, I value a 32-hour week way more than the extra however much money that'd be to work 40 hours. Are there other employees like that in our organization? I think there probably are. Are there other employees not yet in our organization that may be in the future? I mean, it's likely. Now, how does that impact? Now, that's a unique position, and it works from an operational standpoint. How does that impact our services? That's another question.
Well, but if we can't afford these bump ups, if we have them, then we're looking at cutting staff. Because we have limited revenue to work with.
That's a potential. Right? There's so many different things when you put together a budget that could be looked at. But that, yeah, I'm not going to pretend like that is not a possibility.
Dave has a question.
Just thinking, as you mentioned the word arbitration, but it's not binding arbitration. Binding arbitration would be, if you get a higher one, we got to pay it, but if you get a lower one, you got to take it. You know, that's what I'm thinking is you gamble if you want to ask for a raise or whatever, check. The other thing is, I would thought you wouldn't have to pay it necessarily. They have the option, they can go to where that other place would pay it. And that puts it back on, well, do you like the benefits better enough to stay or not? You know, that sort of thing. So I'm just curious, when you said we have to pay whatever comes out, then you're gonna have every city's gonna be the same. If you have to pay it, whatever they say, that goes through that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Every city would be the same. These arbitrators find that certain dollar value for every job.
That'd be interesting. In that scenario where every city that was comparable was the same from a wage standpoint, then you'd be truly saying you're staying because of culture and flexibility and those types of things.
I have to tell you what I just want to say, as you talk about that, Dave, maybe, and we talked about this, Aaron, too, the name of the company again?
Carlson Detman.
Maybe it would be good if they came in and gave you a presentation. Because we're relying heavily on their ability to give you good comparables. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you really are, but they're experts in this area. That's what we're expecting from them. And they do this in other communities. And so maybe to help you a little bit with comfort level, you should just get a presentation from them too. I think it would be helpful. Be helpful to me, to tell you the truth. So, Dimitri, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, if we're going to constrain ourselves to pay average wage for a given position, then are we positioning ourselves to get average employees? I mean, I think back when we were trying to hire a building inspector, there were some people that didn't have a building inspector credential that were applying for that position. And if we hadn't found someone with the building inspector credential, we might have had to hire someone. And they wouldn't be able to be up to speed. Why should they be making an average of someone who has a credential? We should have the flexibility to be able to pay less if someone does not have the skill set as they grow into the position. Vice versa, if we want to hire a rock star who's got tons of credentials, we ought to be able to have the flexibility to pay more without positioning ourselves to be stuck at this higher level now because it can never go down. You know what I mean?
I do. I think that's a wonderful comment. And so one thing that Carlson Detman looks at is that you have to have a very, very accurate job description, and with that comes like the let's just take the building inspector and credentials and what do you have, and they take a look at that. Now, we're talking about an employee that's here right now that then we're testing it, but in a hiring scenario, what ability do we have? That's a good question that I think, and yes, we did plan to have Carlson Detman come in and give presentations and learn more. Tonight was, so I think we need to answer that question, and I think that's important as well.
Well, but haven't you already kind of answered it? Like maybe, sure, we could hire someone at this lower than market rate because maybe they don't have the skill set, but as soon as they're an employee, they could request the $300 analysis and instantly be bumped up to someone who has all the credentials.
Well, again, and I probably agree with you, but I think Aaron answered that too. The job description is a very important part of this. If this person has not gotten to that position where they have all the qualifications of that position, they will take that into consideration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry if
Yeah. So, yeah, all good questions, and what Fond du Lac does, or other communities do, doesn't necessarily mean that's the way we have to do it. But we also think that we need to do something, okay? Like Aaron said, we haven't done a pay study in 20 years, and we haven't done a pay study in 20 years because the last time we did one, we didn't really think it was fair to either side, quite honestly. So a little bit afraid to do it. This seems like something that we should try. And I don't know, you know, we talked about, do we limit it to certain group of people one year just to see how it works? I mean, you know, we can, I don't know. We'll have to look at it, you know. But we have to do something. If somebody else can come up with a better idea. I mean, this is something that Aaron actually researched and did, and I was a little cool to it at first, but, you know, as I thought about it, we have to do something. And this seems like something that can work. I mean, I truly believe, you know, that our employees are well compensated in our community, you know? But if our employees don't think they're well compensated, you know, we have a disconnect. And so we can get that connection together. So,
If we're experiencing a lot of turnover in the police department, can that not be addressed maybe through labor negotiations?
Yeah.
And maybe deal with that group of employees just through that process. It exists. And there's always comparables being done in that process. So I don't know that, this is just Henry's opinion, I don't know that compensation is an issue maybe in the police. Because they are in theory getting what every other police unit is. Now, maybe it's the non-represented employees in the department, and the separation is maybe where the issue is, and it's not in the union positions. But it seems like that should be talked about whenever the contract comes up for.
So maybe, and again, Aaron, this is your baby, so, but I just want to, in my mind, I want to bring up two departments. One, Eric, if you could just explain your process, because the library is not included in what we're discussing here. So could you really quick discuss how you do your process?
For benchmarking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so every year, libraries across the state are required to submit a report that includes information on salary scale for full-time and also salary scale for part-time staff. And then working with the Outagamie Waupaca library system, we are able to pull together a report focusing on comparable libraries in categories of our choice and take a look and see at those comparables whether individual positions are comparable, whether expenses and benefits in total are comparable. So libraries are usually pretty good at reporting a lot of that stuff. There's usually requirements state by state for that, so I'm generally comfortable with finding that information and just pulling it together for the board.
Okay, thanks, Eric. So the library is not included in what we're talking here. They're their own baby. They decide raises within their department. We give them a set amount to use, and they use it as wisely as they can. Okay, that's a little bit different. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron. I don't think, and maybe they do this in Fond du Lac, but I don't think you can have employees that are represented by a union be a part of this, because if we're going to do it as arbitration, we'd still have to negotiate that raise, to your point, Henry.
Correct. So there would still be, they'd still have to go through the negotiation process. It could be used as a tool in the negotiation process.
Yeah, and so the police department's a little different from the library, even though they are their own baby, and well, you know this, Henry, better than I do. But we do give the police department has set them out and they get to decide how to use the money. The one thing they don't get to decide how to use the money is salaries. So we control those salaries, okay? Their pay increases and so on, different than the library. So that's why like Paul could request that, or the chief even could request that too, because they're not representative by a union. Yeah, we made this pretty long here, but I guess it is pretty important.
Yeah.
Well, if you're perceiving, the staff is perceiving a disconnect between how we think as the council and our employee relations and what's really happening on the ground. There's a disconnect, to the mayor's point, there's a disconnect. If the employee's not feeling it, then there's something we have to address.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's fair to
Yeah.
say. I mean, even at your presentation last year by personnel, you did feel, sorry, Corey, you weren't here last year at that time, but when we had presentations by department heads, you could feel a little bit of that disconnect right there last year. Okay, so again, we're trying to do the best thing that we can to make sure that we are in a position to continue to keep our employees, but also to hire good employees in the future too, that as these people either retire or move on. So, and all of those things are gonna be helpful by hopefully doing this. Go ahead, Corey.
So Aaron, you mentioned in your report in the regular meeting that you were projecting that insurance might be up 7%.
That's what we're being told.
Okay.
Right now.
So if we are getting those types of numbers for insurance, would we be looking at freezing a wage analysis and saying, we approved it, but we're not doing it this year because insurance numbers? I mean, how would we balance those two things? Because the insurance is really important too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody's wages can go up, but if their insurance goes up, you know, your wage just got eaten by premiums.
Right now, yeah.
So, I guess have you
Yeah.
kind of fleshed through that at all, or
Yeah.
thought about that?
Well, and so make sure you explain, well, I could do it real quick here and then you can answer. But remember that if the insurance goes up 7%, the employee pays 10% of that and the city pays 90% of that. So it does increase the city's part of the budget and the other 10% is the employees. So I'm not sure that, well, depending on whatever their cost of living increase is, you're right, it eats into that cost of living increase. I'm not sure it's gonna eat all of it up, but it will eat up some of it. Yeah, go ahead.
So, no, to answer your question directly, especially, let's just say it's 7%, that would not necessarily freeze this. And I don't see it as freezing it in the future. Now, if we get some crazy number that's 15, 25%, I think council has to know that all conversations are always on the table for any future budget. But that would not be the intent. Now, may insurance packages change because of that to mitigate it? Potentially. There's a request we threw at our insurance company now to look into a couple things that I've seen other communities do that's been creative and employees have really liked it and it's kept things down. There's things you can look at to mitigate that. It was not my intent to have those be hovering over this wage analysis thing every year.
It's a good question though, because you know about the insurance being increased. Yeah, awesome. Any other questions? Okay, so you'll see some form of this when you see the budget, when it's brought forward. So if you have questions beforehand, don't be afraid to contact Aaron or myself for that matter on this matter. Again, it's Aaron's, he's the one that did all the research on it. I feel like I know it as well as he does. So,
Would we have that presentation?
Yeah, we absolutely could. Definitely prior to passing the budget. Yeah.
And again, even though we put it in the budget, we're not gonna proceed until we feel comfortable that we can do that. So the budget doesn't mean that we have to expend the money or do it. It's just that it's in there when and if we decide to do it.
Yeah, we might want to put some parameters to it too.
Yeah.
And have that
Right.
discussion.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Where are you going next? Mr. 10 Minute.
Mayor, do you mind if I piggyback after you? Because
Oh, sure. We can go this way. Go ahead. Paul, you talk next. We'll end with Eric in the library. Let's go right down.
I erased my watch.
You got in ahead of me.
Paul,
If you don't.
Hey, Paul, for.
I'm gonna be 5 minutes or less, I promise.
That's okay. For future information, if you're gonna have handouts at the council meetings, I have to see them first.
Okay.
All right? So.
Can you give,
I think I told.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I just get my leg.
My
legs are falling.
Thank you.
I got one thing.
You're not very good at passing things.
No. David?
We're gonna have to send you to class.
all right, you okay with those, Mayor, before I get started?
I am studying it fully, so I think you're good.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I've had the fortunate opportunity to be on the Personnel Committee and also attend some of the strategic planning meetings. And one of the common themes that has always been touched on and even brought up just now is retaining employees. And then also being able to recruit the best people for the positions. Police departments nationwide have been struggling to fill positions and have had to resort to avenues to fill vacancies. We're seeing agencies recruit, or I guess word some are using is poaching experienced officers from other agencies. It's gone as far as departments offering sign-on bonuses for applicants with prior experience. This has had an even bigger impact on smaller agencies who are unable to offer officers those incentives. To alleviate that, we need to stay competitive in our pay, so we aren't making it a no-brainer for officers to pursue careers with other cities, and we especially need to be competitive within our county. Officers in the city of Waupaca, injuries have been going up. We've had officers spit. I had a loaded gun pointed at me 2 years ago. Who's going to want to do this job? I mean, that's what the nation's running into. So a trend we found with the city of Waupaca is we are at the bottom of the spectrum regarding the wages for police department. Countywide, surrounding counties, just as a whole. We feel that there needs to be an adjustment. And we think that's a huge contributing factor to the retention issues we've had that was just noted. So just to go through some of those statistics, we've lost 19 officers since I started here in 2011. We lost 1 in 2011, 3 in 2012, 1 in 2013, 3 in 2014, 1 in 2015, 1 in 17, 2 in 20, 1 in 21, and 3 in 22, and 3 in 23 so far. Just to break down those stats, if you can see in Figure 1, 9 of those had left to be law enforcement officers in other departments. 7 of those have left to be officers within this county. They're going to the sheriff's department. They're going to New London. 2 retirements, and 1 of those went to the private sector. So to kind of reiterate those stats, 84% of the 19 that left are still in law enforcement, just not with the city of Waupaca. And again, we're contributing that to a lot to wages. So if you look at figure 2, kind of broke down our pay. Sorry, it's kind of dark the way it printed, but you can see I just took the Waupaca County Sheriff's Department, New London Police Department, Clintonville Police Department, and Waupaca PD. We are the lowest in the county right now. Talking with the union at the Waupaca County Sheriff's Department, they are anticipating 5% increase next year. New London is obviously way ahead at over nearing $36 an hour. Clintonville's at $32 an hour. If you go to figure 3, kind of spread out a little bit more. Some of these municipalities are bigger than ours, but I was trying to look at agencies that are somewhat near to here where we could potentially lose officers too. Some of them are comparable as far as size. So I kind of went proximity, size, etc. So again, on that graph, also you can see we are the lowest in that group. You know, one of the things with Waupaca County, we lost 6 officers to Waupaca County since I've been here. You know, why is that? You know, higher wage, obviously. Another benefit they have, and this isn't something we're asking for, but they get a take-home car. They can take their car, their squad car home every day, park it at home, wherever they live in the county. Some outside the county. They're allowed to drive their car outside the county, and they're allowed to use it for personal use. So you talk about, you know, we had an officer that lives up in Clintonville. It was a no-brainer for him to go to Waupaca County because now he's using the county-provided vehicle to travel to work and back. Again, that's not something we're asking for. It's just something we're trying to compete with. And when you look at the wages, they're making more money to us, and they get the benefit of taking a car home. You know, we really need to be able to find a way to not lose officers to that. You know, we lost an officer to Appleton PD last year, an officer to Neenah PD this year. We understand we're not going to compete with the Valley. I mean, they're making more money than I am as a brand new officer there. We can't compete with that, and we don't expect to compete with that. But what we want to do is try to make it where we're not losing officers within our own county or close to of comparable agencies. You know, just looking at our turnover, like I mentioned, 19 officers since I've been here. Of our current staff right now, we have 6 that are on probation. Our probation is 1.5 years, so that just shows how much turnover we've had. Just speaking with an officer today, he's been here less than 2 years. He's actually, I thought it was number 4, but it's number 5 in seniority, so that speaks to how much turnover we've had. I broke down some of the numbers of how much it costs when we're losing these officers, which, as you can see, I said 3 officers in 2023. I'm going to say 2 officers in 22 because one was a retirement. Off the top of my head, I just threw some of these numbers together. Cost $1,000 for the medical exam, psychological, drug screening, $500 outfit him with a uniform, $1,300 for a vest. I will note that we do get some of that reimbursed from the state, but it's not. When we have to hire a bunch of officers, that 50% reimbursement does not cover what we are putting into it. $2,000 just to have officers field train that new recruit, because they get paid an hour of overtime every time they field train for every shift. So that's about $2,000 just to train somebody in overtime. Say we have to send someone to the recruit academy. It's about $18,000, not counting benefits for their wages while they're in school. So that's them not even out on the road yet. That's just them to get through the 720-hour academy. So totaling all that up, you're looking at, let's say, $22,000, $23,000, and those are, like I say, rough numbers. That's not taking into account the money when we're short-staffed, where we're having forced overtime because we don't have someone to cover a shift, or you know, other unforeseen things that it would just be too hard to calculate. So again, you know, just I went on WileyNet, which is the website where police departments are advertising. One of the ones I noted on here was, in the figure 3, was Merrill. They have a position posted right now for 30 $6.28 as a police officer in the city of Merrill. Portage County Sheriff's Department, we have officers that live in Portage County, $36.48 an hour. So, you know, we need to find a way to keep officers invested in the community, invested in the city of Waupaca, and they want to work here, so we can retain them, because it's costing us way too much money to keep rotating out officers. So I think the city's on the right track with this wage study, and I really hope everyone understands kind of where we're coming from. But, you know, I really feel it'll be beneficial to perhaps entertain the thought of analyzing the wages of the police department. You know, obviously, as Henry said, that there are caveats with unions, et cetera. That stuff, you know, we're willing to work through their union and negotiate, et cetera. Like I say, our primary goal is, you know, we don't want to compete with Appleton or Neenah, because we're never going to get to that point. But we shouldn't be losing officers to New London or Waupaca County, just as Aaron pointed out during his presentation. We need to be competitive. Waupaca's a great place to work. And I believe that's all I have for you. Does anyone have any questions?
Dimitri does.
Just like to say it'd be interesting to also have statistics like how many officers per capita
Sure.
these municipalities have and what percentage of the budget those municipalities fall under police and law enforcement.
Sure.
But going to what Henry had said before, that if we have to raise wages in a particular department, it might mean that we might have to get by with less employees. Following that logic, could we get by with less officers to be able to pay more to our existing officers and still stay within budget?
Sure. I think with the recent legislation that went through, we can't reduce positions or police budgets. With the recent act that went through, with the what's the word I'm looking for? Shared revenue. There is verbiage in there about not reducing police protective staff, et cetera. So I don't even know if that's an option.
Wow. So much for local.
Yeah,
control.
so the direction from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities is that the one rule of the shared revenue is that you have to at least maintain funding for protective services. So could a staff member be reduced if the funding was still a little higher or the same, potentially? But that is a very new act. We would have to take a hard look at all that.
Go ahead.
Is there any, appreciate the information, Paul, it's very, very
Yeah, thank you.
informative. Is there anything with our shift scheduling that is maybe contributing to the overtime?
No,
Or
we run a pretty.
The turnover, excuse me.
Oh, no, the officers in the union love the shift. I've actually tried, when I was in the union, I tried to do a different rotation, and everyone loves the 4 on, 4 off. So that does not, we don't feel that contributes at all to the turnover at all, so. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Well, just to go along with Henry's questions, just so I fully understand that too, is you guys work, the union employees work 4 days on, 4 days off. They work 11-hour shifts.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And so that equates to less hours in a year that they work than, and help me out, one of you guys here that knows that like a public works employee works 2,080 hours, and the police department under that shift works 2,020 hours, I think it is, if I remember from our negotiations. So do you take that into consideration, that you actually work 60 hours, they work 60 hours less a year? Maybe less than Clintonville does? Again.
Yeah, I guess my perception is we have officers, you know, the stuff the officers have to deal with. They're getting called in to come in at night for infant deaths, for shootings, for suicides, for I mean, I had a loaded gun pointed at me. You know, you say, oh, you're a police officer, you signed up for that. No one signs up for that. So you talk about a couple less hours a year to deal with that.
I wasn't even comparing it to public
No, I
works.
know, but
was
I'm just
comparing it-
saying.
Hold on here a second now, Paul. Don't make me the bad guy here. I'm just trying to ask you questions here.
Sure.
All right? I asked you if there was a comparable in hours between Waupaca Police
Sure.
union employees' work versus Shawano employees versus Clintonville versus New London.
Yeah, I guess I would have to run those numbers because a lot of them are on the Pittman schedule, which is a 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off. Some work 5 on, 5 off. I'd have to run the numbers. I can get those for you if you'd like to have them. I can definitely do that. But
Well, I don't, again, you guys, you're really presenting what your union employees are making here, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they-
this is just
they do
union.
the negotiations.
Yep.
They have every opportunity to negotiate a higher salary
Yeah.
with us.
But like, I guess I look at it as me as now a new administrator of the department. I want to take care of them, so we're not spending $23,000 per year per officer, and we're continually having to retrain and train and hire and
Yeah.
et cetera. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I want to fix it so we don't have turnover like we have.
Yep.
I
That's
agree
my
with you
goal.
fully.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's our ultimate goal, your ultimate goal, to have that. So I fully agree with you. And how we do that, I'm not sure. But again, I agree. I appreciate this. I know you had to pump this out fairly quickly
Yes.
to get this to us. But I want to make sure that when we do see these things, that we are comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was, like I say, I had limited time to get this together, and there was plenty more stats I'd love to provide. So.
Yep.
I guess I'd want to pick up on Dimitri's thought, and we have to deal with that shared revenue thing. I'm not going to mention the communities because you know them. We have municipalities that have police departments. However, they're not providing round-the-clock coverage. So is there a reality where we can afford to do some more on wages, but maybe the sheriff's department, we contract with them to do some coverage, maybe in the winter months or something like that. And I know that's sacrosanct because, they have kind of a different approach to law enforcement than maybe the municipal governments. But we are paying county taxes, and maybe this is a solution if we're willing to be creative to pay for what you're suggesting we need to address.
Yeah, I guess on that, I would encourage you to talk to your constituents to see what they want. I know when I started here and I decided if I wanted to live in the city of Waupaca or in the county, one of the things that stuck out to me was I wanted officers to be at my house in 2 minutes if something happens. I guarantee our response time as a police department will be better than the sheriff's department can provide, even though they're in the city.
Understood.
So I think the public service you get from a police department, especially in the city, is a lot better than the service that the sheriff's department can provide. And I'm not saying that because I work for a city versus them, but I think, like I say, talk to your constituents, see what they would want to see in that aspect. So.
Yeah, and I would echo exactly what Paul said. Public safety is number one for us. And so, I mean, that's a different issue that you're talking about than what I think we're talking about here. I don't think you could combine those two things. Not that I don't appreciate the comment, I just think it doesn't fit.
Yes, sir.
Clarification, 4 11-hour days, right, you said? So 44 hours, do you get overtime for 4 of those hours, or do you get overtime for 3 of the hours, over 8-hour a day?
No,
Or
it's
none of it's overtime?
Sure, it's a 2-week pay.
Bi-weekly.
Yeah, excuse me, bi-weekly pay period. So how it actually falls is, they work 66 hours in one pay period twice in a row, and then it's 88 hours, 2 pay periods. And it just fluctuates. They know they don't get overtime unless it's anything over that 11 hours in that shift. So even though it is potentially more than 40 hours a week, it's not overtime based on how the schedule falls, et cetera. So.
Okay, other questions about that? And I think Aaron actually addressed this earlier. Don't forget too that we were looking at helping incentivize officers trying to stay here too by giving them the opportunity to get additional training and so on too. And we know pay is important, of course, and benefits are important too. So
Yeah, and we really appreciate that because I think it is, in talking, as Aaron mentioned, with the officers that have left, the training has been a huge thing. And we're in September now, and our training budget for 2023 is already expelled. So I have officers that are wanting to do something, and we can't because our training budget's over. And the other issue is the state training schedule is fiscal year, not calendar year. So we're trying to line up the required mandatory 24 hours of training for each officer on a fiscal calendar, but our budgets are annual calendars. So that's another headache. So, but officers, for anyone that doesn't know, officers are required 24 hours of mandatory training each year. So times that by however many members we have of sworn law enforcement, that's a pretty large dollar amount on its own. And we only get reimbursed $2,400 from the state. With this new legislation, we're supposed to be getting double that, $4,800. But again, that doesn't cover all the training in itself. So, and we want to send officers the best training. We want to send them to specialized stuff because we want the best officers out there. We don't want lawsuits, et cetera. So, and I think up to this point, we've done an excellent job in that. So,
yeah, absolutely. And turnover has been an issue for you guys, but you and the Police and Fire Commission have done an excellent job of replacing people as they leave.
We've been very fortunate.
Officers seem to be just as good as what is left. So.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, so as we go forward in this budget, if we can figure out ways to help us with turnover there, that is what I think Paul is really getting.
Yes, thank you.
Out of this whole point. So,
all right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Yep. Where are we going next?
Right down the line. Laura.
So, lucky for you, I don't have any long-term changes in my personnel or for our permanent personnel. I'll be talking to the Parks Board a little bit more about some of the little minute things we're going to be doing with our seasonal part-time staff, like changing a little bit with how our beaches laid out and how they transfer through. But as far as, long-term or permanent staff, there's no changes that we need to make at Parks and Rec.
Anybody have any questions for Laura? Man, are you getting off easy.
Too bad. I really shine at 9 p.m.
I think she does it all.
Wait 10 minutes, we'll ask you a question.
Okay, Justin. 17 minutes.
Okay, all right, next up, we have Mr. Behrens, Public Works,
I
Water,
can't beat that.
Sewer.
But I'll try to stick to the 5 minute. And I can share
Was
this.
that a jab at maybe one or two people?
I tried to stay in there.
I'll point right at him.
Well, he got questions. You have.
All right, so I do have a memo, and I didn't get it distributed, but I can share this after the fact, and I'll just quickly go through it. So the first suggestion we're making is in our custodial staff. We have 4 right now. 2 of them we utilize the service for staffing. We do that, we pay them roughly $17.70 an hour through the staffing agency. We want to bring those 2 people on board as official employees for the city. It would be their part-time positions. Our other 2 custodians make $12 and $12.96 an hour. What we're suggesting is to bring all of them up to a flat $14 to stay competitive with similar jobs in the area. Aldi's, the McDonald's, the Quick Trips, and other cleaning positions in the area. Altogether, when you do the math, it will equate to $2,300 approximately of savings to the general fund. So while we are giving an increase of the baseline. We're saving a lot for not utilizing service for staffing. And we started utilizing them a number of years ago because we had a lot of turnover there. And with that rate as low as it used to be a number of years ago, we've been making incremental steps up. Now we've been getting much more solid staff members, and we want to solidify that. So that's request number one. Number two is in our street department. Trevor Hintz was hired November of 2020. He was brought on as a laborer. We want to give him a promotion to operator. So in our pay scale that we adopted in 17? Does. So the street department, when we have a vacancy, or the few that we've had, instead of filling that, we bring them in at an entry-level position, which is just labor. Through the years, we promote them, operator, skilled operator, and then from there, it's the more specialized. And then horizontally, there's a 5-year scale, so they don't officially get to their full rate till they're at 5 years. So, so far, with just Trevor being in his position, the savings, I guess, when you compare it from our scale to the traditional, I had that number here, has been roughly $5,500 to date. He's going to continue in the scale for the next 3 years, which would still save $9,000 over the next 3 years. So we've done this before. We've had 2 other people who are through the 5-year scale already, and we have 2 people who are just slightly lower on the scale right now. So this is the next progression. With the recent hiring of our newest member at the labor, when that vacancy was there, and just throughout the years, Trevor's been doing more. So it makes it appropriate to give him that bump. And then it better reflect what he's actually doing, especially during snow removal. So that's it. And that is it. Am I at 5 minutes?
Thanks. Anybody have any questions of Justin?
The math is shown in this memo that I'll distribute to everyone soon.
So, remind me, the cleaning staff, do they get any benefits?
No.
None of them are? Okay.
Nope.
So they're part-time.
They are all under 1,300 hours a year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just wanted to know. All right, Steph?
I don't have.
Nothing? All right, yeah. Well, we're getting close to using up Paul's extra minutes now and then. J-Rod?
Nothing for me either. I can start a joke, thinking about a new director. More to come on that in the following weeks.
It's getting late. I think that one went over everybody's head.
It did go.
That's fine. He usually just talks about how great he is.
That's where my bad.
Well, you won't be ending up in a comedian when you.
Thanks, Henry. You'll have free tickets, though. Would you still come?
All right.
Yeah.
You know, that was a story that a comedian said to me once when I tried to outwit him. He said, you know, it isn't that easy, is it? So, there you go. All right, Eric, give us the lowdown.
Okay. Unfortunately, I got a lot for you.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
So I, you know, it's late, so I'm tempted not to disagree with you.
No. You take
Okay,
all the
okay.
time you need. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I shouldn't have done that.
All right. So I present this evening with the caveat that the information presented tonight hasn't been reviewed by the library board yet. They'll be receiving this information at their board and finance committee meetings tomorrow, so there's likely to be some things that move around based off of the preferences as far as how they want to do things with that group. So jumping right in, taking a look at the personnel expenses and working with the revenue numbers that we have to work with. Those include a reduced reimbursement from the county. County reimburses based off of amount provided by the city as well as checkouts. And then I've been asked to prepare a budget that assumes a flat contribution from the city. overall, that adds up to $10,000 in less revenue for this year. We do also expect increased expenses, maintaining some existing subscriptions, databases, and the aforementioned bottom floor for health insurance increase at 7%. So, that being the case, if there were no changes for personnel, other expenses, no raises or changes in hours for existing staff, we would already be starting with a not insignificant budget gap that we needed to close, one probably around $20,000, just by virtue primarily of changes with the county and the health insurance expenses. So we are not looking at a static year, however. We are in fact, planning for and know that we will be having some significant turnover for the year ahead. We have 3 retirements / departures that will be happening in 2024. Sue Abramson will be retiring at the start of 2024. Patsy Servey will be leaving for other opportunities at the start of 2024. And Jan Rademacher will be leaving at the end of 2024. In total, the payout for the 3 of them will be $92,784, which is a bit. Patsy and Sue told me when I was hired about their future plans, so this is not anything out of the blue. They told me when I was hired that they would guarantee that they would give me a year. They've been as good as their word on that. And, you know, I've talked to them a lot over the last year about their future plans and the reasoning behind their decisions. And, you know, I would love if we could keep them both indefinitely, but, you know, I think listening to them that, you know, as far as where they're at, that they're likely making life-wise, the best decisions for them. So, what else have we got going on? So the library has been in the process of transitioning to a single desk model since 2016. We previously had multiple desks on the main floor, one that was an information desk staffed by staff that had more hours, more training, and a significantly higher pay scale, and then one that was a circulation desk that was staffed by folks that did the checkout and had a significantly lower pay scale, and then we had folks that were doing paging and working some other stations that were paid at yet another level. So what we've done in working towards the single desk model, and this is mostly complete by the time that I arrived last year, was really have one desk with 3 different stations that staff rotated between. The challenge with that is that we've still got all those different job descriptions and salary scales now being applied to folks that are basically working a single workflow model where they're at one desk. And that is obviously a problem in a variety of ways. In particular, it's something that staff are keenly aware of. I'll put it that way, that people are being paid at very different levels to do essentially the same work at this point. So that needs to be fixed as soon as we practicably can. There is a ongoing challenge with where the current salary scale is set. Depending on the position, if it's some part-time under 20 hours, we would be starting the person at either $8 an hour or $10 an hour, which is not super close to competitive at present in the market. Little bit better if somebody's over 20 hours or has a few more responsibilities, but that still only boosts them up to $12 an hour as a starting salary. So we've got some ground to make up there. We had significant challenges in filling some openings that we had this last year. I had mentioned that I regularly do the comparative salary survey with the help of the folks at Outagamie Waupaca Library System, OWLS. So we set about identifying the cohort of comparable libraries, pulled together the report. One of the things that really stood out is that for the 2 key full-time positions that we are going to be looking to fill in the year ahead, our head of adult services and our head of youth services, that their current salaries both clocked in towards the bottom of the salary scale, which does unfortunately match up with some of the experiences that we've had over the last year. We had posted a full-time position that was very close to what Patsy's making now, which I, at the time, did not feel great about. I felt even less good when we could not fill that position at that salary. We got as far as negotiating with someone, and when they got into the details, full details of the salary, they said, no, I will not work for that rate. Okay. We eventually managed to move things around to fill it in-house. So we got it done, and I think in a way that ultimately was a positive for the organization, but it was not a feel-good hiring experience. So it does make me a bit concerned as we go into the year ahead. The two positions that we fill are kind of the left wing and the right wing for the library. They're the two core management team positions for the library. So we need to fill them, basically. So we basically then have three shortfalls / expenses that we need to cover. The smaller one is that we need to make available about $6,000 to cover the cost of the restructuring so that we get everybody on working our main desk on a focused set of job descriptions that describes that workflow, and that they're on a salary scale that at least puts us on the road to being a bit more competitive there, and that provides consistency with the work that's being done at that service point. We need to cover the $20,000 revenue shortfall / cover the rising expenses. That's just kind of that baseline shortfall that if we didn't do anything, we would still be short. And then we need to cover the $92,000 in one-time payouts. So where does that leave us for 2024, and what are we looking at doing? Well, the library has been trimming the budget in places since 2016. Our funding's been pretty steady since then. So we've trimmed since then the programming budget by 72%, the materials budget by 29%. The programming expenses are low enough now that at $5,000, they're probably not going to, even if we were to just completely do away with that, they wouldn't actually free up that much money overall with the numbers that we're looking at. And if we go any deeper on the materials budget, we're probably going to end up in hock with the consortium, which is expressing concerns about libraries not putting enough funds towards materials because it affects the ratio of exchange between libraries, which is one of the things that you commit to when you sign up. So, looking then, as we have to, at primarily our biggest expense area, which is our personnel costs. So that will be where we'll primarily have to make up the difference. We do have some room that we are able to work with there. We have done provided an incredible level of service for the community for the past 20 years. Sue, in particular, is nationally recognized at what she does. She was highlighted as one of the pay-for-entry programs at the American Library Association conference this past spring, which is you have to be people have to be very interested in listening to you, put it that way, for them to put you in one of those programs. But we are at present at 13.84 FTE full-time equivalent, and that does, according to the study that we've done, place us above average, though not by a ton. But looking at that, as well as looking around and knowing after a year and getting to know things, that we do have some room to become more efficient, though not a ton. So looking at the draft budget, what I'll be proposing for the library board, obviously we'll be burning through our $44,000 of general balance. That's the money that we had left unused in previous years. We will be waiting about 9 months to fill the full-time positions that will cover the remaining costs of that shortfall between of the payout costs. We are going to have to look at eliminating some desk shifts and getting more efficient. We'll be eliminating 20 hours a week, 2 to 6 p.m. main desk shift. We'll be cutting some service hours. Our quietest hours of the day are 7 to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. We'll be cutting those. We will be making some minor cuts to the AV collection budgets. Most notably, we're not going to be buying any new adult audiobooks. We've made the decision that we're going to, for some of our databases like Hoopla, we're going to have to rely on donations to cover those costs. We'll be reducing hours in the teen room during the school year. And most likely, when we get to the end of 2024, we will be moving on with one fewer full-time position. There's a lot of variables in terms of hiring for the head of adult services and head of youth services that are up in the air. It can be a $30,000 difference depending on whether they opt out of insurance or go for need a full family coverage. So, but most likely looking out at the 2025 projections, we'll be looking to move on with fewer full-time positions. So that means that we'll be moving from 13.84 FTE to estimating about 11.5 FTE at the end of 2024, which is more about average, and will take us to a personnel cost that if we were to project out, say, have to redo 2024 with that staff that we would end 2024 with, that we would balance. That is going to set us up for some challenges in 2025, that if we don't have any movement on revenue further in 2025, then we'll have to make further cuts, and that'll further impact services. So it's going to be a different library in 2024. We'll have fewer hours of service. We'll have some reduction in services and programming that's going to go with that. Some of that is going to be because it's an interim situation, and we're going to be changing over, and we're going to be missing some key pieces for a while as we go through that change. And some of that we'll get back. But in part, we are, in working with the resources that we have been given, moving to a slightly different model. So that is your final personnel report for the evening. When I stood up, the Brewers were up 5-3, and I hope they're still winning by the time I sit down.
They are.
Excellent.
Not that I'm looking. Can I ask you a question real quick?
Fire away.
Maybe you threw these at us, but what is your total compensation? Do you have this? If you don't have it, you can send it to me. What's your total compensation?
Salaries or benefits? Either, both?
I'm really just looking at salaries, but yeah, if you have that. But if you have the total, that's fine too.
Okay. Here, let me bring up. I don't know why anybody wants to use these things as touchscreen only. And that should be the budget, shouldn't it? Curse you, technology. Oh, there we go. Salary budgets for 2023 stand at $380,000 for full-time and $120,000 for part-time.
So 500?
Yeah.
And what's your total budget?
Total budget, $824,000. So.
Okay.
We are grateful that the county does have an option. They've been fluctuating more than the reimbursement usually does, but that's because it reflects looking back to previous years, in this case 2020 and 2021, which were weird years. Waupaca County has committed to funding us at 100% of the reimbursement formula that the state provides, which they aren't required to do. They only have to give us 70%. So we do appreciate their commitment on that, and that's something that highlights the value of our participation in the consortium, because Owls is the group that goes to bat and negotiates that for us.
Great. Other questions? Henry, go ahead.
Well, Eric, I guess those were really tough discussions, I'm sure. I can't imagine you going 9 months and not having your core team around. It's going to be a difficult slog.
It's going to be an adventure.
Tell us, the foundation wasn't created to help you meet your operating budgets.
Correct.
We're all in a new reality. But is that a possible source of some help?
It is a source of help on particular things, like with the hoopla and providing some short-term coverage for that. They can help with something like that. When it gets to things like covering costs that are more routine, like personnel expenses, the core materials costs, they've made pretty clear that they don't consider that to be part of what they do. They raise money pretty specifically from folks to do extras and support the library. I ask them at times for some of those things, just hoping, but they've been pretty adamant. They won't replace our restrooms either. They consider that to be operational.
Keep going.
You talked about that most recent hire, and I may have misunderstood. You brought them on board, but you had to tweak probably the benefit package to get them here, right?
No.
So
So we had gone through the interview process, and we had it listed as compensation according to service. We found somebody that we felt was a really good fit. They seemed really excited, and we got into discussing salary. And we were talking $20 to $22 an hour, and eventually they just backed out and said, it's not enough money for me to move. So what we ended up then doing to fill the position was we looked in-house to a staff member that we knew was looking for new opportunities, and we recreated the position to something that we felt was a few steps down the road, but closer to where we eventually wanted to be, and that we felt would appeal to that in-house applicant who had not previously applied. So we got it done that way, and managed a little bit of a savings, because then we turned around and didn't fill her position that she'd vacated when she went full-time. But yeah, the $22 an hour is within a buck of what Patsy's making as head of adult services. So, and when she turned it down, we didn't have any other applicants in the pool. We thought we'd gotten lucky because we had we had one great applicant, but you only need one, and she accepted, and she's fantastic, and we're so excited, and it happens. Other questions?
Anybody else have any questions? Eric, thank you for that information. Appreciate it. Obviously, as we put the budget together, we'll be talking to you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Colin, go ahead.
There was a couple of programs I think you guys were trying to get going to increase some revenue. Have you had any success there?
We've got our training and application in to become a passport acceptance agency. So we are projecting that will bring us about another $5,000 in revenue. At minimum, that's a very conservative estimate. I've not run a program like that in an area here, but I feel pretty confident that we can clear that in 2024. So that does help offset the county a bit. We are also seeing increased usage of the meeting rooms and increased usage of copying services, and those help offset a bit either as well. So that shortfall could be bigger. It could be closer to 30, but we are, by creating additional revenue sources, kind of chipping away at that. And, you know. We had at the last staff meeting a full discussion, you know, like bring me your ideas, whatever you got. We've discussed most anything that we could think of.
Okay. Thank you. Keep it up.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
You had mentioned last spring, and I know in some of our library board meetings, that the state is now requiring libraries to be job training centers, and I might be miswording that. Is
No.
that, or job seeking centers?
Job centers.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way that played out was that the state is in the process of winding down physical job centers. Right now, the only job centers still open are in the larger cities in the state, La Crosse, Eau Claire, and the Valley, but they seem intent on winding those down and closing those as well. And then the, we call it an unfunded mandate from the state, was that they had instructed that anybody that had challenges with making use of all of the online resources or that needed more one-on-one help with job applications should go to their public library. So here we are. We pretty quickly thereafter had some folks that started coming in and asking us about job center questions. Laura Jandasek, who's one of our part-time stars on staff, has taken on the role of point person for that and has been doing a fantastic job, sometimes spending good chunks of her available project time working one-on-one with job seekers. So we've got a dedicated space that we pulled together for it, and pulling together the resources that we've got on hand. You know, we were kind of handed that, and we're doing our best to meet that need.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Aaron, do you want to just sum this up? Or?
Well, Josh.
Oh, yeah, Josh. I'm sorry. Josh, come on out.
Josh,
Poor Josh in the corner.
Oh, he's asleep.
You only reminded me of one other thing. You have nothing.
Hey, Josh.
He wins the prize, 10% raise for him.
All right. Okay.
Let's not forget about the clerk tonight.
I know.
And Barb has, yeah, I asked Barb also, and she, I think Aaron actually handled the deputy clerk part of that. So, anybody else have anything for the good of the meeting? This is a committee of the whole meeting, and I request that we get a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Veliker, that we adjourn this committee of the whole meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. We're adjourned at 9:13 PM.